Yes, behold my Lord Ulrich, the rock, the hard place, like a wind from Götaland he sweeps by, blown far from his homeland in search of glory and honor. We walk in the garden of his turbulence.
Yeah!
Yeah! Okay, sorry guys, I messed up a little there, but I think I still carried it through. Welcome everybody to our A Knight's Tale stream. This is a week behind because apparently life decided it was going to get in the way. But we're finally here, and Erin and I are talking one of our favorite movies. Erin, I mean, pretty much we all know each other for the most part, but should there be anybody watching who isn't part of our group, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm pretty boring. Hi, I'm Erin. I don't stream or do anything like that. I am a regular on Not a Cast live chats and Here Be Dragons live chats and John Webster Film and Unspun Yarn and all those. I'm more of a chatter than I am an actual streamer, but I was extremely excited when I heard that John wanted to talk about this movie, and I demanded that he invite me on. So he was kind enough to do so. But yeah, my Twitter is like nothing. I don't really tweet or anything, so it's not even like I have that I can share with people. So it's lucky Mac 44, but it's not interesting. So yeah. But thank you for having me on. I'm so pumped. So.
Yeah, I heard Twitter is in the description, so follow her anyway and try to bully her into tweeting more so we can get that going. Now, but yeah, this was great because I just, I love to talk about these movies with people who like really share a love, and it's funny because of course you and I sort of infamously disagree on a lot, except for we both love Lord of the Rings, thank God, and we both love A Knight's Tale.
We agree on the important stuff.
So. Exactly. But yeah, so but who knows, maybe we might still disagree on some finer points, and we'll give people some entertainment in that regard. But yeah, why don't you just talk about what was your introduction to this movie? When did you see it?
So I saw it, I think I was probably a few years out of high school, and actually I saw it with a guy that I had a huge crush on and his cousin who was my friend. And they I've learned sort of later in life, like when you're trying to impress someone, maybe wait and see what they think of the movie first before you just sort of blurt out your own opinion on it. But I've never been good at not just blurting stuff out. So we got out of the movie and I was like, oh my God, this movie was amazing. I loved it. It was so fantastic. And the guy was like, are you serious? He was like, that was the stupidest movie I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, damn, why didn't I wait to see what they thought about it first? But no, he and I became friends after that. Like no big deal or anything. But it did always kind of stick in my craw that he did not like A Knight's Tale. So yeah, but it was just one of those things where I was like, shoot, I shouldn't have been so effusive about my opinion. But then I suppose I wouldn't be me if I wasn't effusive about my opinion. So yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. I have a very specific memory about seeing this because at the time I was still in karate, and it was after I had made black belt. I remember because we had black belt meetings once a month in the morning, and it was always a grueling experience. That was like the point where I was sort of on my way out of it because it's like once you get to that point, you're not learning as much. Strangely. But I remember that because I was looking for a way to just sort of unwind and relax after the meeting was over. And so I was like, let me just go to the movies and see what's playing. And I had vaguely kind of seen previews for the movie, but I don't know that I was necessarily gung-ho on seeing it. But it was playing, so I said, okay, let me just go in. And I had the most wonderful time of my life. It's just one of the most joyous experiences I remember having in the theater. It's because it starts and it just puts a big smile on your face, and it doesn't stop throughout the entire time.
100%. It's so funny you mentioned the trailer because I had I didn't remember it, and then you posted it in the Slack, and I looked at it and I was like, wow, this kind of gives the whole game away, doesn't it? Like, it's like those older trailers that it's like 2.5 minutes long and it's basically the whole movie, and I was like, wow, trailers these days are still this long, but I think they're a lot better at like not telling you every like plot beat that you're going to encounter. So it just kind of made me laugh. I was like, wow, yeah, not a lot left to the imagination here. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like here's our first disagreement. Yeah, I actually feel like modern trailers actually do give a great deal away. I just don't think they're edited that well.
That's fair.
I actually think that trailers from that period, yeah, they gave a lot away, but I actually think that they were pretty well edited. The only gripe I have really with that trailer is that they end it by using like really modern music, presumably to sell the movie, and the movie has predominantly rock and roll music, which is different from the trailer using a really modern at the time song. So yeah. I remember thinking that's a little bit of a misrepresentation, but you want to bring in the young kids who are listening to,
I suppose, the
contemporary music. But around the same time, you had like the Lord of the Rings trailers, which I think are like probably they set the bar for film advertising. It's no shock that I think that.
For me, no shock that I agree with you either on that score. So
yeah. Anyway, so getting back to the actual movie, I mean, what I loved about going back to see this again was that, I mean, obviously it's just a fun movie, so I love revisiting it, but it's shocking to see the amount of talent that's in this movie for people who have now gone on to be really well known. This was like the first time I ever saw Paul Bettany in anything. And there's a joke on the audio commentary track, which I listened to today. And it's where he says, basically, my ass makes its way into American cinema before I do.
True, yeah.
It's just that classic moment of where he just walked in the screen with his bare ass, and
while everyone else is sitting around like, wait, what's happening here? It's great. It's so like, because it's like Paul Bettany and Alan Tudyk. I think this was the first time I had seen him as well in anything. And I guess Mark Addy wouldn't have done anything that I was familiar with before this.
Yeah, I know he was in the Full Monty, but I don't believe. I mean, at that point, that isn't probably something I would have seen anyway, because I was still pretty young at the time, and I don't think I was looking at dramas. It was more,
No, and not like British TV or anything like that at the time too. Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I mean, I was trying to think if I'd seen Alan Tudyk in anything before this, and I don't think I had. I think this was the first time.
No, he was in a couple of like TV, but it was nothing that like, it was more like mini series and stuff like that. I think that he was in before this, and it was like, I don't think I would have seen anything like that. But Shannyn Sossamon also, I think this was her first like big thing. So I don't think she had ever done anything. It looked like she had done some videos, but yeah, so.
Yeah, and Kate saying the Joker, Robert Baratheon, K2SO, Vision, and Mace Tyrell walk into a pub.
I know. Everybody is so like famous now, and it's just hard to believe that you hadn't heard of any of them. Although I loved Paul Bettany so much in this that I watched anything that like came out with him after that.
Yeah.
I saw that terrible like Legion movie and a bunch of other things that I was like, I loved Paul Bettany. The only reason I saw Beautiful Mind is because Paul Bettany was in it, and I was like, yeah, so this was the beginning of a long crush on Paul Bettany. So that's not because of his ass.
See, that's so hilarious that you say that, because I remember I went to go see A Beautiful Mind just because of it's the fact that, I mean, everything was Fellowship of the Ring's competition at the Oscars that year, as far as I was concerned. But it was an Oscar, contender, and Russell Crowe, who obviously that was just a year after Gladiator came out, and I was so in love with that movie. so I went to go see it, and it had escaped my notice that Paul Bettany was even in the movie. So when he pops up, like, 5 minutes into it, as at that time seemingly the roommate, I'm like, holy crap, Chaucer is in this. And my interest just like went up at that point. I was like, okay, I can enjoy this movie.
Yeah, I thought it was fine, but it was Paul Bettany was the draw for me. So
yeah, and of course, then later he was also teamed up with Russell Crowe again in Master and Commander, which was a big favorite of mine. Which, spoiler alert, I will be doing a stream of Master and Commander sometime soon. So,
with Kelly.
so I look forward to that. But yeah, so and. We're talking about a lot of the supporting actors, but we can't not mention Heath Ledger, who, obviously he went on to be extremely acclaimed for work that he did in both Brokeback Mountain and The Dark Knight, obviously. But this pretty much solidified me as a fan of his, just because he's so endearing in this movie.
Well, it's what I hate about you was before this, and that was definitely when I was like, yes, I really like this guy. And then The Patriot, I think, was before this, and so I'd seen it in that as well. But 10 Things I Hate About You, like, he's just so good in that movie, and I don't know, it made me sad when I was watching this movie. Like, I literally just wrote like big at the top of my my notes here, like Heath Ledger's smile. Like, he's like an all right looking man. Really, he's handsome and everything, but he's got that smile that changes his whole face and just lights it up when he does his whole big, real smile. And it's just, I was just watching this and I was like, God, this just bums me out that like, he's not still here to smile, like I was just, it was such a distinctive and wonderful thing that he had that was wholly his own, so yeah, that bummed me out, but I'm also glad it existed in the first place. So
yeah, it's sort of a really sad thing when you lose actors, especially at a young age. It's you realize that Heath Ledger is always going to be sort of, we never got to see him grow older and mature into, whatever talent he might have become, even more so than what he had. So he's always going to be this young man in cinema, and it's just sad, but it's nice that we have this record of him, that we get to enjoy these performances that he did. But it sucks. I especially, with the work that he did later on, it would have been really interesting to see where he would have gone. Because I know I was certainly shocked that the guy who, played William Thatcher went on to do the Joker, because it's such a completely different, because I know there was this whole thing before he took the role of the Joker, or when he took the role, and people were like, I don't know if he can pull that off. There was a lot of doubt, and then those first previews came out, and everybody was like, holy crap, he's really transformed himself. So yeah, it always makes me sad thinking of what could have been. But
well, I liked that he still did silly things too, though, even after that, like the Brothers Grimm movie was so, like, again, that wasn't like a great movie, but I enjoyed it, like I enjoyed him. And who's the other lead? Is it Matt Damon? Yeah, because that was just a twofer there for me. There was absolutely no way I was not seeing a movie with Matt Damon and Heath Ledger in it. But like, he didn't get to the point where he was like, no, I'm only doing prestige drama. He's like, yeah, no, let's do this weird fairy tale thing. So yeah, I liked that too. So obviously, it's not nobody has to do silly things after they get famous or anything. But I liked that he kind of still did. So
yeah, it's like when Brokeback Mountain came out, I think around the same time he did that sort of romantic comedy period movie Casanova, where he was just goofing around and having a good time. So right,
exactly. So yeah, it was it just I don't know. I just, again, like you said, it's sad that we never got to see what he could have been, but it's still nice to that we have this of him as well. So
yeah, and here he is.
Aw, Heath. I can't believe you didn't pick the very first shot where he looks like an extra from like Vikings or something.
I have to go with what's available from the library. But yeah, it's, referencing again the commentary track. There's a joke that it looks like he's Tom. Yeah, Did you just say that or no? What did you reference it as from Vikings?
Yeah, Vikings.
But also Tom Hanks from Castaway.
Oh yeah, it's a wig, kind of. Yeah, definitely. Oh my God, no, I hadn't seen the beginning of this movie in so long because it's just one of those that I kind of like watch whenever I catch it on TV and stuff. And I had totally forgotten how hilarious the beginning of this movie is. Like, it's just with his hair and like I love when he pulls out the nostril plugs and he gives them to Roland and he's like left, right. Like it matters which nostril they go into, like it's so great that he does that. And then it's like this, I couldn't help but think of like Dunk and Egg, like this, when he like the night under the tree and stuff like that. And he dies under the tree and the squire goes on to like be the knight and stuff. But I don't think, I guess, unless Dunk refrained from telling us, I don't think that Sir Arlen shat himself to death. So I could see Dunk skipping that detail.
Well, this movie is like a whole part of the whole reason why I enjoyed reading The Hedge Knight so much, because it is like George R. R. Martin doing The Knight's Tale.
Yeah.
So it is a lot of fun, but it's funny that we're just referencing some of Watt's lines, in the opening. I mean, it's just comic gold. The back and forth between him and Roland, where it's like, Dad, what do you mean, Dad? The spark of his life is smothered in shite. His spirit is gone, but his stench remains. Does that answer your question?
It's so good at beating the shit out of the corpse too. Like, it's just it makes me laugh every time. Like, pissed and he's just beating it. Oh yeah, he's coming right there. He's almost there to the ring. You just wait a minute, So while Watt's just beating the corpse, I love it. I was just absolutely dying. Like, it's like a laugh a minute for the first 30 minutes of this movie. Yeah, and that it just starts out so well, definitely. So
yeah, that's right. His spirit, his stench remains. Yeah, it's great. And but then it automatically, like, it turns from those laughs to giving us something to root for and establishing sort of the dramatic stakes where Williams starts saying, strip his armor, I'm riding in his place. And Roland, goes through that speech of, what's your name, William? I'm asking you, William Thatcher, to answer me with your name. It's not Sir William. It's not Count, Duke, or Earl William. It's certainly not King William. And so there's that whole beat where, this is dangerous to do. And I just love that shot of Heath Ledger after Roland says, if the nobles find out who you are, it'll be the devil to pay. And Heath is just smiling there, and he goes, then pray that they don't. And then it goes into We Will Rock You, which let's talk about that, because apparently the director says in his commentary he felt very foolish because nobody told him that there was no rock and roll music, back in the Middle Ages or whatever. But then once the decision had been made, it was too late. So they had to keep you gotta forge ahead sometimes, even though if it's not accurate, so he said with a lot of the stuff he figures that since it was like the 1870s or not the 1870s, but whatever century this was in, it was the 70s, and he said the 70s have always been the same. So no matter what century you're in, it's as long as it's the 70s, you can just keep going with it. So
does not hide what it is right away too. And like, I feel like we should just make a disclaimer now. Like, this movie is not historically accurate. I'm not going to be like, well, it really would have been like this. I'm just going to talk about what it is. Like, there's a few characters who are real, but like, no, nothing is accurate. So I'm not even going to bother like pointing that out for the rest of the time that I speak. But what I love is that my brother and I were watching it, and he was like, those guys that are in the stands, like when they're playing We Will Rock You and they have their shirts off, he goes, that's basically the olden day version of the Wrigley bleachers, like the guys in the bleachers at Wrigley Field, you know. And I was like, oh my God, it totally is. You know, there's the girl that's dancing like not really to the music that also reminds me of the Wrigley bleachers, but all that stuff, it just goes right in and is like, this is what this movie is. It's not anything else. We're not bothering with historical accuracy. We're not going to get caught up in that shit. We're just going to go ahead and be like, this is what you're in for. So buckle in, you know? Yeah,
it really was. I like automatically I'm going to smile watching a movie, you know, that's, you know, set, you know, in medieval times and they're playing We Will Rock You. That's going to make me smile. But then especially once I started seeing like, you know, the Lord mouthing rock you, it's like, oh, so it's actually supposed to be playing. And then you have the music itself coming out of, you know, when they're playing on.
That's what sound those make, right? Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. No, it's I mean, that song is so iconic, like that if you're gonna use it, you're gonna need to do something with it, you know. And I feel like they just use it to sort of set the tone, and I think that's so great. So yeah, I guess like I like the anachronistic stuff because it allows them to do a lot more with. I'm gonna have a lot to say about like feminism and stuff in this patriarchy dream. So it allows them, it opens up a lot more with like what they can do with women and what they can do with costuming and what they can do with other stuff. So it just by starting off being like, yeah, we don't actually care about accuracy, it opens up the movie to do a lot of other really interesting things. I know so many people hated the modern music, but it's like, no, you got to see it like as part and parcel of the whole thing, you know? So yeah.
Yeah. And it's not like, I mean, it's not like that's the only thing that's, you know, out of place. It's the way the entire movie plays, the way the performances are, it's everything very much has a modern slant to it. So so the music is just part of that. So to me, it makes perfect sense. And it does, it's a way of, you know, back when this movie came out, you know, the way I always looked at it was a way of making, not necessarily giving you an idea of exactly how it felt to, you know, be living at the times, but to give us an equivalent, like, you know, things that seem, you know, when we watch a period movie, things seem very old fashioned, you know, to a modern viewer. But if you were living back then, that's not how it felt. So,
sure.
So I thought it was a very creative way of putting the audience in the shoes of, you know, characters from that time.
Yeah.
But so, and you know, sometimes I don't like to just go through a movie chronologically, but I love every part of this movie. So
yeah, there's not a part we can skip. So yeah.
Yeah. So they get to the joust, and you know, William has that moment of, I've waited my whole life for this moment, and again, Watt comes in with, you waited your whole life for Sir Ector to shite himself to death.
They're just like, yeah.
And so the joust happens, you know, and just by not falling off his horse, he's able to win. And then the helmet gets stuck on his head, and there's that great comedic moment where they're like, Sir Ector, and that sound effect as he turns his head, and just
well, and then Watt tries to, when he's like, oh, the final blow of the lance is bended onto my face, and Watt's like, he says the final, and he hits him, you know, like, that whole scene is hysterical, especially because all the nobles are just kind of looking at each other like, but like, I guess what I wondered was like, did no one know what Sir Ector looked like? What was he planning to do otherwise if the helmet hadn't been bent onto his head, you know? So I guess maybe the noble didn't know what Sir Ector looked like, but I was like, oh, that's lucky. He can't remove his helmet, you know? So yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things I think when you're desperately trying to figure out a way to make this work, maybe you're not thinking that far ahead, and they would have been in some trouble.
Yeah, perhaps.
Had that been the case. It's Alan Tudyk is just amazing. His comic timing is just unparalleled. You mentioned the part where William sort of hits him to stop him from talking. That jerk and that look over to the side, is just perfect. It just makes you crack up. He doesn't have to say anything. It's his looks that do it.
His facial expressions are just priceless. Like, I think the only person in the movie who has better facial expressions than Alan Tudyk is Christiane, the maid, Berenice Bejo. Like, she gets, she has lines and stuff, but her facial expressions are so amazing. I'll talk about them later, but yeah, I think she's the only person that even comes close to Alan Tudyk in the movie for sheer amazing facial expressions. So,
there is a moment where she's like, maybe where he comes from, it means love. and Shannyn Sossamon looks at her and she's just kind of like,
Yeah. Yeah, my favorite is the stank face she gives Admar after he gives Jocelyn her token back, picks it up and gives it to her. She gives the most exquisite French, slightest nose wrinkled nostril flare, and turns, and it's fantastic. It's just a facial expression of absolute perfection that I love so much. But yeah, she's kind of caught reacting to a lot of things because she doesn't speak as many of the other characters, but it's no surprise that she was then nominated for an Oscar after, for The Artist, because you could just tell that she was very talented. So
yeah, I was just going to mention that she was in that, and I remember when that movie was coming out, I was like, I swear I know her from something, and then I realized it was from this. I was like, oh, that's great. She's able to, she really went the distance, and the fact that it's kind of I don't remember who won that year, but I actually would not have been disappointed if she had won, because I
forget. Yeah.
I think that for me, she was the best part of that film. And so, but
anyway, so sort of moving on from that, I love when they're talking about when he's like, we can do this, and we can actually make this work, and we can do all that. And they frame it right in front of the gallows or the gibbet where the man is hanging and all the crows are behind it. So it's really trying to reinforce the seriousness of this. Although they do kind of sort of lower the stakes. They say he'll be put in the stocks. You don't ever get the impression that he's actually in mortal danger here, though again, he probably would have been in real life, but we're not doing in real life stuff. But I love the whole framing of that, where it's they're telling you that they're doing something dangerous while they're arguing about dilled veal balls and all this kind of stuff, and they're tussling over the money and stuff. I loved that juxtaposition so much. I just thought it was so clever. Just the guy just hanging there, no big deal.
Which, by the way, that was actually a real person hanging there.
Oh,
which
really?
Begs the question of why. But they talk and actually behind the scenes about the fact that it was a rig to have that person up there, and apparently the thing that supports them is obviously strapped to their under area. So the person was not very happy after hours of shooting that. But it's again, it begs the question of why not just get a dummy or something?
Yeah, maybe the dummy blew too much or something. I mean, just was too distracting. I don't know, but yeah, that's a real commitment to realism. To hang a man in there while you're filming. So yeah, definitely. But yeah, I love it. Then that's the introduction. But something my brother says all the time, God love you, William. No one else will.
What's great about that moment is also it's character-wise, what it does is it really establishes Roland as he's the one kind of calling the shots, because
he's the leader, yeah.
Because William looks to him for, you know, if he's not on board, they're not gonna do this. And I guess poor Watt doesn't get a vote.
No.
He's not really on board with it, clearly.
He's stoked. Yeah.
Poor guy. He just wants his sweets. But
yeah.
And
but
then,
no,
of course,
it's a ballsy thing to talk your friends into like, get like, this is more money than they've ever seen, and he's like trying to talk him into like giving it back to him and doing this stuff. I mean, it's like so interesting to me throughout this movie, like what his friends risk and what his friends sacrifice like for him, you know, and like, because there's always kind of he says we can change our stars, but it's really only him that's changing his stars there at the end of the day. You know, Watt is not going to become a knight, and Roland isn't going to become a knight or anything like that. They're going to have the same position that they had before. They'll have more money and probably be treated better, but I think, you know, when I think about that, it's like Roland is the leader, but you know, William's kind of the heart, I think, and that's everybody follows him in this like frankly like ludicrous scheme, because as you pointed out, like they're not really thinking very far ahead. You know, they're not thinking about Sir Ector, they're not thinking about patents, you know, like, or what they have no plan.
A lot of the stuff is just sheer luck that they're able to get through. You know, you mentioned the patents. I mean, that would have killed this whole enterprise right away.
DOA with no patent deal. If not for Chaucer's ass coming up that road, you know. But
that's kind of what's great about this, is it is a movie about friendship and you know, and love, and you know, and you see that these two guys are willing to, you know, follow William just because they love him so much, and so if he wants this, they're going to stand by his side, and that is a great exchange. You know, when William just asked, you know, for 3 silver pieces, you know, or for 13 silver pieces, 3 men can change their stars, and there's just that beat, and then you have Roland saying, "God love you, William," and the relief on William's face is like, I know, no one else will.
Yeah, it's great. And then it leads into Amy's favorite part here, the training montage, which is awesome. Like, the training montage is so good. Probably one of my favorites in cinema. So, I think is he getting worse? He's definitely getting worse. Like,
and of course, the whole thing's set to Lowrider, which is
again,
like I must have played the soundtrack like a million times when this movie came out, and of course that was back in the day of you know when everybody was still playing CDs, and I had like my portable CD player with my headphones on and everything, and I just played it over and over, and and who doesn't love a good training montage?
Yeah.
It's just, and it's got all those great,
really improvised, you know. This isn't Batman in like a fancy gym. This is like 3 guys in the woods trying to improvise like a mounted joust, you know. So they do a good job improvising it, but it's just with Watt standing there holding the shield, and like it's so good. Thank you, AU Pet Mule, for showing up.
Thank you for coming by, and thank you. I saw you subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate that. Thank you. But you have all these wonderful beats, and then there's the one where William falls in the water, and they're just any minute now.
Just its bubbles keep coming up, you know. Oh, it's so good. It is, and just with all the different ways, your ponies when he's got the grass trying to get it, it's, oh my God, it's such a good training montage. It just, again, they did a really good job improvising stuff to try and figure it out. But God, you think when you watch this stuff, like 9/10 of the battle had to be like gaining upper body strength to hold a lance steady. You know, like when you watch them, like, you know, when they're riding and they're trying to hold this thing that had to weigh a ton, you know, and then you have to like keep it straight and stuff. It was like they should have just shown William doing thousands of push-ups a day or something to try and get the strength to hold that thing. But yeah, it was an excellent.
But that's okay. We've seen a training montage, so clearly they covered it, and he's good to go.
That's true. So yeah, but no, it was very good training montage. So.
And what's interesting is there's actually a deleted scene following this montage where the three of them are trying to come up with what's going to be on the shield, because they have to obviously come up with something new, because it can't just be, you know, the same thing that Sir Ector used, you know, obviously. And they come up with a phoenix, which is interesting because if you put that scene in, the next shot is, it shows William kind of rising up as he's on the horse. So there's actually that transition built in where he's, Phoenix rising from the ashes. And
definitely, and especially after he's been given a shave and a haircut too, you're like, there's the Phoenix, you know. So yeah,
it's like, oh, thank God, he's not going to look like that the whole movie.
We don't have to look at that one gross green dread for the whole movie that looks like maybe it's algae or something. Yeah, but I'm sure it's supposed to be dyed green because that's the colors are green. But yeah, it's like, ew, I don't want to look at that forever. So yeah, I didn't have to. So.
And so they're arguing about who gets to ride the horse, and maybe nobody should be riding the horse, and then best entrance ever, Chaucer and his bare ass walks. and it's like his speech just is so great. It's like, they're like, "Sir, what are you doing?" He's like, "Trudging. You know, trudging, to trudge, the slow, weary, yet depressing walk of a man who has nothing left in his life, except the impasse to simply soldier on."
Soldier on. I was extremely impressed with Paul Bettany's ability to stand on one foot and put his own foot near his mouth. Like, I was like, that was an impressive balancing act there. Also broke.
Do you know that the whole reason for that is because apparently the producers, of course, producers gonna meddle, thought that Paul Bettany wasn't funny enough, which is weird. He's hilarious.
Yeah.
So the director and him who are actually friends, and the director Brian Helgeland wrote the part for Paul Bettany. They devised this moment where he stands on one leg and pulls the thing out from his foot, just as like a one-off thing to show to the studio of him doing like some physical comedy. And apparently I guess that satisfied them. And then they decided to implement it into the actual scene. So that's where that comes from. Yeah,
it is. It's impressive. It's an impressive, both in balancing and flexibility manner there. So yeah, they're lucky Paul Bettany was so flexible. So yeah, Amy, me too. Especially in 2020.
I had thought about earlier today of just putting that up as like a definition, which not even referencing the movie, like putting it up on Twitter, because it really does define the 2020 experience.
Yeah, and I felt that really hard in my heart there. So yeah, that's. I was like, look, this movie is one good thing. Rewatching this movie is one good thing that has happened to me. So yeah. But.
Yes, the ponies are lovely.
They are very pretty horses. So I was actually thinking, I love that he never switches his horse out, even though he must win horses from competitors that he knocks off their horse. He never, he only uses the same horse the whole time. I was like, oh, William's loyal to his horse. That's so cute, and I love it. So even though they said it's kind of an old horse or whatever, they wanted to save the horse, but yeah. So
or just production shortcuts.
Yeah. Like I said, maybe they all have horses like at the end, so maybe he just gives the horses to his retainers there. So yeah.
And so it comes out that this, man walking naked is none other than Chaucer, Geoffrey Chaucer, who they never heard of really, but it's like that moment of when you've gotten used to everybody just knowing who you are, and they just giving him blank expression. He's like, Chaucer, Geoffrey Chaucer, the writer.
No.
What is like the what?
Yeah.
He's like, the what? The what? The writer.
Yeah. I was thinking, like, can these guys even read? Like, I don't know why you would expect peasants to know who he was, but that's kind of this Chaucer too. Surprised that everybody doesn't know who he is. So,
which, I have no idea, how much this version of Chaucer resembles the actual man, but I'm guessing it's not very.
Probably not, no.
But it's just the character is such a great invention. There's a reason why I became such a huge Paul Bettany fan after this, because he pretty much steals the movie. I mean,
a lot of it, yes. Yeah.
And actually, I am going to talk later on. There's a very pivotal deleted scene with him near the end of the movie, which there is an extended cut of this film, and I think it really transforms a lot of the sort of emotional gravitas of the movie and with his character as well. But I'll save that till we get to that point. But
I look forward to it.
Yeah, but there's just and of course he casually drops a mention of all the stuff he can write up for people, and he mentions patents of nobility, which they're going to need, but they don't know that yet. And so he asks them to introduce themselves, and they did this half-hearted, well, I am Sir Ulrich von Liechtenstein from Gelderland, and these two are my faithful, Stryers. And it's like, I'm Richard the Lionheart. Pleased to meet you.
Pleased to meet you. It's the whole, because I love that starts the dynamic with him and Watt too, that just goes through Watt's best. I also think I think what Paul Bettany doesn't steal, Alan Tudyk steals, I think, because even in this one, this is where Alan Tudyk with the fonging and your entrails will become your extrails, and just the whole right in his face, and you can tell that Chaucer's I'm not not even a little bit taking you seriously with this, and then William pulls the knife, and then he takes everybody seriously, but it's I love their dynamic so much. In the dancing scene later, which is so awesome, it's those two that just make that whole thing, and you see it right here start, and I love it so much. So yeah,
so they're about to just leave him and go on their way with him sitting there in the dirt naked. and then he just mentions, so you're off to the tournament, are you? And it's like, well, they're limiting the field at I think it's Rowan. And
it's interesting though, because they keep pronouncing it as ruin, and so it's the road to ruin repeatedly with them, but it's Rouen actually, but I think they say Rowan, but yeah.
And I kept, of course, at the time I kept hearing Rohan.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, and so he says only those who can prove their nobility, patents of nobility must be provided, and he's got them at that point. They're stuck because they haven't thought of this, and presumably in the past it hasn't been necessary, and so he strikes a deal. He says, I love the way he says it, what was it,
it's clothe me,
clothe me, something else, and for God's sakes, feed me.
Let me write that over.
and you'll have your patents.
Shoo me is the second one. Close me, shoo me. Yeah.
And Watton's like, all right, let me handle this.
Yeah, hold on. I got it, you guys.
And then he goes, and again with the thonging, which I've never been able to figure out exactly what's meant by this, but presumably just beating the crap out of him.
Yeah.
Which of course Chaucer isn't taking seriously, and the other two aren't, because they're just cracking up in the background.
Yeah.
And he says, pain. Yeah. Lots of pain.
It is. It's such, and like I said, that I love that dynamic, and I love that this is just the start of it, basically. So, yeah. But I wrote here too. I love when he says his name is Chaucer, and William kind of goes, Chaucer. He's like looking at everybody, like, Chaucer. Have I heard that? No, I haven't heard it. And I was like, of course you haven't heard it. Come on, man. You know? So yeah,
Yes, Stephen. Thank you for your comedy. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Stephen. That's the only thing it is, too. So, yeah. So then they go to ruin. Then ruin. Also, where Joan of Arc was burned at the stake. I've actually been there in real life. So, yeah, I have a really macabre picture of me like sitting on her pyre. It looks like a senior picture. I'm like just sitting there, and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have really been smiling. That was probably not great on my part, but yeah. So.
Okay, if you're serious, Stephen, but of course the word in the movie is fong with an F.
F-F-O-N-G. Thong is a shoe and a pair of women's underwear in addition to a leather strap. So, you know, I mean.
So they arrive there, and Chaucer, you know, gets them in, and he makes a whole big show about, you know, hitting the shields.
Yeah.
And I love, there's an exchange at that moment where Watt is just like not warming up to him, and he's just like is staring him down, but then Roland is laughing at it, and then Watt sees that and just sort of chuckles, like, you know, like he still doesn't like him, but he's got to kind of go along with
it. We need him now. Yeah. So
and so then William offers, you know, Chaucer to, if he'll act as herald, he'll give him a share of the winnings. Then Chaucer says he has to, you know, take off, and we can kind of see what his
dog.
Yeah, we can see what his issue is based on the fact that he's glancing at some gambling going on.
Yeah, it's totally the meme of the guy looking back at the gambling, and then like William's in front of him. Yeah, so yeah. But yeah, the gambling, yeah. And then we meet our lady love. The first appearance of my head bitch in charge, Jocelyn there. I like her weird cowl before this. But this is an excellent shot when they pan down, when that starts from above her and they pan down to her face, like through that netting. It's just a really, really amazing shot.
Yeah.
But I love the weird hood she's wearing, and when she's first, it's like got a little peak on it, and it's adorable. It's this amazing hood, and then she has something that must be her family crest on the back. It's like two dogs, I think. But yeah, then we meet Mates Tyrell there. So in the church.
Yeah, they go into the church, and William is following them on horseback. and of course Roger Ashton Griffiths has just this amazing entrance where all of a sudden he's just yelling out, you know, you desecrate the house of God. And
I love all the priests like joining hands and just whispering, moving the horse towards the door there. So
but of course briefly before that, William is trying to get Jocelyn to talk to him, and I love this exchange. There's some, you know, she really doesn't put up with anything, and she's refusing to give her name at this point. And there's that funny exchange where she says, and what would you do with my name, Sir Hunter? Call me a fox. for that is all I am to you. And he comes back with, a fox, then a fox you shall be, my foxy lady.
Yeah. Yes. I love her because I love that she's just immediately like, no, I'm not going to give you my name. You know, like, you don't actually want to hear. Would you care if I were ugly? Yes. No. Yeah. He can't figure out what the right answer is there. And she gives him no help on it either. She's just like, no, what are you saying now? You know, so I love that about the character of Jocelyn, is that she's totally willing to let anyone just stew in their own juices. Like, she's not giving you any help. She's not
which is why it's so great later in the film when she comes to his rescue in the dance hall. Yes. Like, because she's not gonna do that. Yeah. She's not gonna bail anybody out of an awkward situation unless she wants to.
Yes. And she has this, like, what I love about her, what I envy about her is, like, even in this situation where, like, she's in a church and the priest is yelling and it's echoing off the walls and stuff, and she still has she's clearly in charge here. She's clearly in charge of the whole situation, which, you know, why, God, did you curse me with this face? You know, she's mocking him the entire time, but he doesn't quite realize it.
In great Mace Tyrell fashion, he's
I was
doesn't get it.
He had like a plume on his helmet, the blue plume that Mace Tyrell always had. But yeah, I would have loved that on the old bishop here. But I love how she is so self-possessed and she is so completely in charge of any situation that she is in. And it's amazing. The only time she's thrown is actually one of the things that I would like to maybe debate with you later, but we'll get to that in time. But she just is so, I love how self-possessed she is. And I love how she is always in charge of basically every situation that she's in. And this is like such a funny, like, taste of how awesome she is.
And one of the great moments that was actually improvised by her, which is when the bishop is like, God's will has a purpose, though he may not know it. And he puts out his hand to be kissed, and she drives his hand and looks at the ring. She's like, oh, well, that is lovely.
Yeah. Yeah, God doesn't like beautiful things except that your ring and all this other stuff. It's almost like calling out his, like, hypocrisy there. And it's like, ooh, yeah, I like this girl. So yeah. But I love, right? Her costuming is just exquisite in this movie. And I love, that's another thing that I think the not sticking to period, like, allowed, was for these costumes of hers and her hairstyles and her makeup and everything that just is so incredible. Starting out with this one with the weird hood and the long white coat with the red hem and stuff. It's just beautiful, you know. And it's if you stuck really, like, if you like hewed really hard to the actual, like, time period, you wouldn't be getting these awesome costumes.
Oh, absolutely not. And, you know, you wouldn't have Watts, you know, orange hair either. And
looking stylish but disheveled. So
no, the costumes are great, and that's why, I mean, that a non-adherence to, you know, to historical accuracy really just gives this film its whole identity. So I mean, I just am completely in love with it.
Then we get to joust finally.
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, there's the joust. We have all these interesting character interactions, but yeah, there's jousting in this movie too. So, and I think there's a moment where, you know, his buddies are getting all excited about the fact that he's broken a lance, and and he's like, he's off, guys. I'm supposed to have done this thousands of times.
Oh, but no, and I like I love the jousting part, which is awesome, but it might be the second round. It might be after he goes to the sword, where, like, the scene with Jocelyn and Adamar in the stands.
Yeah.
Like I said, I already talked about, like, that pan down scene, but then there's, like, I love that they use this as a opportunity to explain the rules of the joust, because like most of the audience isn't familiar with it, you know. So like Adamar comes in, and I love how Jocelyn says it's very abrupt. You know, like, yeah, that's a good word for it. It is very abrupt, you know, but like then he explains the rules to her and stuff, and that's a good way to like get the audience in with the rules too. I liked that kind of conceit there. So yeah, I don't.
Yeah, see, it didn't bug me at all. It's just part of the whole thing.
I disagree, girl, bro. I disagree. So I thought it was awesome. But yeah, I love the introduction of Adamar, like not on a horse. Like I love the introduction of him like as a man with her, and you can tell he's like so slimy and gross and stuff. And then his squire's just standing back there with like a falcon randomly, which always makes me laugh. Like, why did you bring the falcon to the joust? You just throwing it off or what?
They talked about this. It's like they wanted something, and the animal trainer had you know a bunch of different things, and they went with the falcon. But what's hilarious about that moment for me is and actually I realized that I was wrong about this today when I was watching the audio commentary, but for a while I thought that falcon was just a prop because it sits so still. It looks like it's a fake falcon, but there is a moment where it actually moves, and I was like, holy shit, it's real.
Yeah, I just love it. I love the random falcon. I suppose it's supposed to say something about Adamar or something like that, but
the director was like, yeah, I'm not entirely sure what's supposed to be going on with the falcon.
It's so random. I mean, it just, like I said, just walking around, yeah, here we are on the joust. I got this falcon, FYI, throwing it out there. So yeah.
But anyway, before we get to this, when William is on his way to compete in the sword, he's stopped by Simon the Summer.
Oh my God! Wait, sorry. Rewind super quick. I love when his armor gets messed up on the way to the sword, and to fix it, they're just beating him like with sticks. You know, they're like trying to fix it by just wailing on him with sticks. And I love that that's all they know how to do. He's like, "Oh, I can't lift my arm," and they're like, "Here, let's wail on you with some sticks for a while first." So yeah, sorry, I just had to get that because I loved that part. It was just like, what the hell? So yeah, but anyway, now we can go to the summoner and the partner.
Who, of course, you know, and the summoner and the other guy who's, you know, who's his partner, whatever. These are actually characters from Chaucer's writings, which is great because he talks later in the movie about eviscerating them in fiction. So that actually links into the real Chaucer's tales. But anyway, so we cut to the scene where you just have Chaucer saying, look, I have a gambling problem. I can't help myself. And these people, well, they'll quite literally take the clothes off your back. And then it cuts to the wide shot.
Again, Paul Bettany's ass again, which I'm not complaining about, but yeah, so. Yeah, you manky git. And he punches him. Oh, so good. I mean, it is kind of scary. Like, you can tell that they give actual real weight to this with, you know, with this.
It's great. And
there's weight to it as well.
And this is what I love about this movie so much, because it would be easy for everything to be, you know, jokes and lighthearted, but there are actual real moments of emotional gravitas. And you get to the point in the scene where, you know, there's a question of whether William is actually going to pay the money to release him, and Chaucer has this dialogue of, please will you help me. There's a moment where he trips up, he says, please will, and then he has to cover it up by saying, please will you help me, Sir Ulrich, I promise you won't regret it. And Carter Burwell does the musical score for this film, and it's easy for that to get lost with all the rock and roll music, but his score is so good. And this is one of those moments where it really sells the drama of the moment. And this is the sort of ceiling of their friendship, where now Chaucer is, you know, he's going to stand by William, you know, from this point forward. And it's,
I mean, because that's
so great.
Money, like 10 gold friends, like they're paid in silver for that gold feather, and they're only paid 50. You know what I mean? Like that's a ton of money that he owes, and William is taking that on for him. You know, they don't have to. They've only known him for a couple weeks, but in fairness, though, they do kind of need Chaucer, but maybe not for that amount of money. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, I love that he then did put the summoner and the pardoner in. You know, there's a summoner's tale, and I think one of them is actually in the friar's tale instead. But like, I love that he did eviscerate them both. I will be naked. I was naked for a day, but you will be naked for eternity.
And there's actually the line where Simon says, "I have a feeling we shall meet again," and actually that's set up for another deleted scene that comes in later in the film when actually it's Simon the Summoner who goes to Adamar and tips him off about William's sort of identity. Apparently he's done some sniffing around but since that scene is cut out, it plays more as, you know, as I like it when movies feel like the worlds inside movies feel like they're bigger than what the story is telling. And so that line kind of feels like it's winking to Chaucer's, you know, tales and the fact that they're going to be characters and that they might encounter one another again, like outside of this story. And I think that's cool. And then we cut to they're running to, the sword arena, and Chaucer starts to give his speech, but he's cut off because they're running late. But
he has enough, all right.
And he has a line before that where William says, "You lied," and he said, "Yes, I lied. I'm a writer. I give the truth scope," which is a great line.
Pretty good one, definitely. So.
And so William has to run in there, and he starts, fighting somebody, and there's some great lines thrown in there. I think it's Chaucer who says, "Stop letting him hit you."
Yeah, it is. It's like, because he can't lift his arm, so like he's trying to improvise there, and it's I like the sword. I wish they'd shown a little, like, I wish he hadn't, spoiler, you guys, he quits the sword, but I kind of wish he hadn't, because I liked a lot of the sword stuff, but I guess then we got to focus on joust. But I like this a lot. So, and then, like I said, you already quoted my favorite scene in the whole movie. So I love that nobody says anything, which I don't know if they say on the director's cut. Apparently that was because all the extras spoke Czech and they didn't know that they were supposed to cheer. Yes. So that was totally like ad-libbed by Mark Addy, like to try and get them to like cheer, because you can see a woman like in the background who's like, she's like, but no one else is doing anything. So she kind of puts her hands down and stuff. And like, I love that. I love that my favorite part of the whole movie was improvised. Like it tickles me,
It's great. I have a memory. I actually have a memory of watching this with a friend of mine, not in the theater, but we were working at the news station, and it was during like hurricane season, so we had to be there like all night, and so we were periodically doing like news cut-ins to update people on the storm, but in between that we didn't really have anything to do. So I had brought a few movies, and one of my friends and I were just sort of intermittently watching like 30-minute sections of movies, and so this was one of them, and we got to this part where Chaucer gives his speech, and the part where he gets to "We walk in the garden of his turbulence." My friend had like this outrageous cackle, which was like the most hilarious thing in the world, and he just lost it at that moment. Yeah, it's a great moment.
Yeah, and I believe that you and I decided on the Zoom that at the next con, I'm going to be your Chaucer and just follow you around and be like, "Does everybody know my friend John Webster right here, buddies? Come on, everybody. We walk in the garden of his turbulence." Oh,
yes, she is. She's doing amazing.
Thanks, Henry.
As a matter of fact, we're having so much fun talking about the movie that we're moving slowly through the movie.
It was like, what were we, like 20 minutes into the movie? Sorry, guys.
Let me take this moment, even though we're like nowhere near halfway, but we are an hour in, so I'm just going to sort of, I don't have much of a mid-roll because the truth is that I don't really, my schedule is a little wonky this month. Obviously, it's been 3 weeks since the last stream that I did, and unfortunately, guys, I'm sorry to say it'll be another 3 weeks after today before I can do the next one, and I haven't nailed down the film yet. It's going to be one of 2 options, but I want to wait until I get one of them confirmed before I let you know. But I'll let you guys know in the Slack and on Twitter and everything. So we're good. Erin, do you have anything that you're doing?
No, I don't. Yeah. No, I do not. I have nothing coming up. I don't desire to have anything coming up. I don't have anything I'm doing, but I like I said, I love everybody else's streams and I love talking to everybody in the chat. So find me in the chat somewhere if you really want to hear about anything else I have to say. So
yeah, thankfully I just have some weird work schedule stuff going on this month, but once I get through the month, things should settle down to a normal pace again. So yeah. And let me mention that this weekend on Sunday, we're going to be talking Clone Wars, Star Wars, the Clone Wars Season 2 on Here Be Dragons. That's at 6:00 Eastern on Sunday. I'm going to be gushing about all the great stuff in that season while Steven rails on about the horrible military tactics on display. Which I'm going to be like, I don't care. Give me all the character stuff. But that's going to be a lot of fun. So looking forward to that. Okay. So let's dive back in.
To the 21st minute of this 2-hour movie.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Amy. If I could do better, I really would. But yeah. Okay. So.
So after that, we go back to the joust.
Yeah. So we did talk about Adamar's introduction, and this whole exchange between him and Jocelyn is sort of great because the actor actually said to the actor Rufus Sewell actually said to the director, I feel like I've just got a lot of exposition here. And the director actually said, and this was way before like Game of Thrones, he said, don't think of it as exposition, think of it as sexposition. He actually used that word way back then, which I thought that was something that just came into play with Game of Thrones, but apparently not, where the whole thing is basically code between them, Yeah. It's a lot of innuendo.
When he says, like, I myself, Jocelyn, have never been unhorsed, and she says, nor have I. Like, I love that retort. Like, I just love that she's like, I'm not impressed with you, you asshole. Like I said, kind of like, be gone. I'm actually not really that interested in you anymore. So, yeah.
And then, of course, in case we didn't already dislike him, which I think is hard because we know, you can tell right off the bat that he's going to be the villain, and and he's slimy, and we don't like him. But then, of course, our hero comes on, gets his moment, to actually say something really smooth to Jocelyn, and then he just ruins it by by making fun of him, and his name and his his armor and shield, everything. So
it's really masterful takedown by him. Like, he's not like it you can tell that this guy is a slime ball because this comes so easily to him, these like small insults and this like shaming him rather than actually like throwing any insults at him. It's just all pointing out, like, it's all supposed to diminish him in her eyes, and it's a really masterful takedown, but it's a very, very, very strong indicator of what a piece of shit this guy is going to be in this movie, because he does that so well and so effortlessly, So yeah.
Poor poor Rufus Sewell. I never really liked him after this. It's like,
I don't know. I liked him as Count Melbourne in Victoria, but I think he's Melbourne in the TV series. Yeah, so he's actually a Lord Melbourne in the Victoria TV series.
But he does get hired a lot to play villains.
He does. So yeah, he's got that face. But yeah.
Yeah, although occasionally, I think I have seen him in some stuff where he's a nice guy, and it's usually very weird.
Yeah, agreed. You always are expecting him to do something bad, even when he's nice. You're like, I know the story of Victoria, and I'm like, when does Melbourne turn into a villain here? You know, it's like the answer is never. He's never. Well, he's never. And there's some other things, but yeah. So anyway,
and I actually do keep forgetting to put some pictures up because we get engrossed in the story. But here is the man. This is actually a deleted scene. This is when. This was his original introduction where he's putting on his armor, and he actually observes William while they're beating, William's
his armor
out. And this was how we were originally supposed to meet him, but in the final theatrical cut, we instead meet him with the scene with Jocelyn, which I think is the better choice.
Mm-hmm. I agree. But yeah, then we get into my bag.
And then we get into just the centerpiece speech of the film, which is Chaucer's, big introduction of Sir Ulrich. And I actually considered doing this entire speech to start off the stream, but I thought, no, that's too much.
A little long, yeah.
A little long.
But I love before you even get into the speech, I love Sir Thomas Scoville's Harold is just this really well put together, he's got this great tunic and his hair is all and then he does this really great speech and everybody politely applauds, and then Chaucer in his raggedy ass coat and his hair is everywhere, he just strolls in, and it's such this is one of a couple times when the contrast in aesthetics I think is so awesome because it tells the story. This is just Chaucer in this crap coat that he gets a better one as he gets more money, but he's so raggedy in
he gets what looks like he's dressed as a pimp almost. That's
it's that he totally took that collar off of a dead something on the side of the road, it's all over the place. And yeah, it's so great with like I said, the first one, it is, he's got all the family crests on him and it's well sewn and it fits well, and then Chaucer just strolls in that coat and it's so good. This is going to be good just from that shot alone before he opens his mouth.
It's good. You're very good.
Yeah. Yeah. Watch me bury you, though. So
it's but what makes this great is not just his speech, but the facial expressions of
the performance. Yes.
Of Watt, Roland, and William as they get nervous about how far this is going, and the fact that we as an audience seeing this for the first time, it's we're not expecting this to keep going and going. And
yeah,
and so he starts off with "my lords, my ladies," and everybody else not sitting on a cushion, which of course the nobles don't like. Which is apparently that's taken from an Elton John concert when he was performing or
something. Yeah,
he was performing in front of the Queen.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So. And he says, and yeah, I'm just going to recite the speech in a bit.
You might
Today, you find yourselves equals, for you are all equally blessed. For I have the pride, the privilege, nay, the pleasure of introducing to you a knight sired by knights, a knight who can trace his lineage back beyond Charlemagne. And the look on Alton's face, where he's oh.
Bring it
down, and then it cuts to a wide shot of William and Watt and Roland, and he just sort of is panning across them to sell the comedy of the moment as he starts going, "I first met him on a mountaintop near Jerusalem.
William's entirely not into it. Like, William's kind of looking around like, are people like this? Like, is this cool? You know, like Juan Roland are like, are you kidding me? And William's like, I don't know if I hate this. I'm not real sure, you know. So yeah.
So he's like, I first met him on a mountaintop near Jerusalem, praying to God, asking his forgiveness for the Saracen blood spilt by his sword. Next, he amazed me still further in Italy, where he saved a fatherless beauty from the would-be ravishings of her dreadful Turkish uncle. And Watt's like, then he spent a year in Greece in silence, just to better understand the sound of a whisper. So without further gilding the lily, and with no more ado, I give to you the seeker of serenity, the protector of Italian virginity, the enforcer of our Lord God, the one, the only, Sir Ulrich von Liechtenstein. And then capped off with, thank you, I'll be here all week.
Yeah. It's great. I mean, it's just super, and it's so unexpected, and like, you know, like he has this, but it's so funny because it's so against type. It's so against what he should be doing. Like, he should not be calling attention to his lineage in any way, shape, or form. Instead, he just sort of forges on with it because, I mean, I guess people don't think you would lie that brazenly, you know, but yeah, he's all about the brazen lying. So yeah.
I mean, seriously, my favorite part of that moment is the Charlemagne line.
Yeah.
And just the look on their faces.
Yeah.
Like, oh God.
Yeah.
You're going all in at that point.
You really are. So yeah. But yeah, then we've got my really intellectual analysis of James Purefoy here now too. So you just know from when you first see his face in this that I'm like, okay, yeah, this is my guy right here, you know. But he gets hurt right away, and I don't know, this kind of seems to keep happening to him. I'm not sure if poor Edward has some bad ribs or what, but you know, he gets.
No, it actually only happens once. We'll get to later. What happens later is he's found out. And that's because
he knows no one will compete against him later. Yeah. Okay. But yeah.
At this point, though, after the first couple, exchanges, he does get injured.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "I've never not finished before. I wish to keep my honor intact." So he's not going to forfeit, and so he's just, he's going to go through with it. But William, of course, is a person of honor, so it ends up being a draw. And
Caldwell's is my favorite helmet too. I love the gate that just opens and closes on there. Like, aesthetically, that's apparently I was reading something about the armor, and apparently all of the armor here is historically accurate. Just none of it is from the same time period. Like, it's all like picked and chose from like different time periods. Like, none of this is fantasy, but none of it also existed at the same time. So, but yeah, I love his gate that opens and closes. So yeah.
Yeah, and gotta give a shout out to James Purefoy. I mean, this is a guy who I'm still sort of upset was not like enormous in like Hollywood and everything. He had a fantastic role as Mark Antony on HBO's Rome, which I was really happy when I saw he was in that, and I thought he was phenomenal. But still, I always felt like in the commentary track, both the director and Paul Bettany say, like, when you first see his, face when he actually takes the helmet off later, they're like, make that man James Bond, somebody, please.
Yeah, that would have been good. Yeah. He has
And
a great
so
voice,
it's
too.
a shame nothing like that ever happened for him. But, I mean, who knows? One day he could, still get something that makes him really stand out to audiences at wide. And maybe I'll just continue on my dream of becoming a film director, and I'll just
Put him
cast
in
him in
some.
everything.
So
but
true.
yeah. But that's later in the movie. So at this point, so that's how the scene ends, where it's a draw. And of course, another scene of Adamar getting his digs in, where he says, why didn't he finish him? And Jocelyn says he shows mercy, and he shows his weakness. That's all mercy is. And of course, someone like Adamar, of course, sees it that way.
Yeah. And we missed talking about him, and I like the conversation between him and his squire. Like his squire is an interesting character, I think, because it's clear that Adamar is a real jackhole, but like his squire is also very like smart and involved in a lot of things. Like he speaks up about this joust. He's smart about William's technique. He knows all this stuff, and so he's probably also, if you've ever seen people who work for awful people, they kind of have to be smart, so because they need to avoid getting yelled at or I guess in this guy's case, probably hit or whatever. But I like that conversation happens between the two of them. Like it shows that Adamar at least listens to his squire a little bit about stuff. They're obviously both having the same thought, but I like that there is some back and forth between the two of them. They do have some kind of relationship there, so but yeah, about talking about how he doesn't lift his chin. He keeps his eye on the target and stuff. And it's so funny because that is a total beginner move, like that's the beginner move where like you've never had a splinter in your eye, so you just keep your head down. But at the same time, it is pretty fearless, so yeah.
Yeah, but they don't know he's just starting off. So
right.
But I do like that. The squire says his, style is rudimentary, but still he's fearless, and Adamar doesn't like balk at that. He doesn't go, "Oh, shut up." He takes what his what his herald says and respects it and agrees with it, and so I think that's pretty cool. And actually, I like that character because he does kind of have this progression throughout the film. He's the background character who's allowed to have kind of an arc as he
definitely
does, which is nice. So then we cut to a scene. There's a nighttime camp scene where William is, just thinking about Jocelyn, and Roland is trying to get him to focus on, the tournament and everything. Of course,
weak in the heart.
Yeah, and then there's also another scene with Jocelyn and her maid, where they're talking about Adamar wanting to see her again, and she's like not having it, which is great. Adamar wants his women silent, and so she's not interested.
So smart, like she has like she has an excellent grasp of people, and I love how she is totally immune to flattery as well. Like she's not immune to it because William sort of wins her over with better flattery than other people, but she's immune from these empty gestures that are just, well, lady, I will win this tournament for you. Like they show all the guys riding by and being like, and she's like, yeah, thanks. That's super. Thanks a lot. So, and then, like I said, later she says why she's against that. And we'll talk about how baller that is later. But I like that she is, like, she's beautiful and she's really, really with it. She has really good people reading skills and no time for bullshit. So, but I also like that that Christiane, her maid, is the same. Would you have Sir Ulrich win the tournament for you? Like she knows she's got it all figured out, and she I mean, not even close to like Adamar, but her maid is never afraid to talk back to her, like not in any real angry way or anything like that, but she's never afraid to sort of be like, would you have Sir Ulrich win the tournament for you? So yeah, it's I like their relationship very much throughout the Amy and I have pointed out this movie does not pass the Bechdel test. Like, there are 3 named women characters, but 2 of them never talk about anything but a man. But at the same time, these are really, really, really good women characters, I think, in my opinion. Anyway, we'll get to Kate a little bit later, but I can't say enough good things about how much I love Jocelyn in this movie. So, and how I love how smart she is, and that they don't, again, because it's not hewing so closely to the times, it lets her be mouthier and, more astute and things like that, rather than just quiet. So.
Someone who we actually haven't talked about yet, we unfortunately kind of skipped over, is Kate, who is the armorer, who they go to because maybe once the armor actually gets cracked, they need to go about fixing it in a different way than just smashing it in.
Yeah, so, they can't just beat it back together then. So, yeah.
And of course, everybody tells them to go to her because, she's a woman, so she'll, obviously, work for free where they won't, and but of course she's quite savvy. She's like, nope, I'm not working for free. But then, of course, William kind of plays against the, uses the rivalry and the antagonism between.
He pricks her pride. He pricks her pride, and that's how he gets her to do it. And it's a little bit of an obvious ploy, but what I love is that she gets him back then with the exact same trick later when she gives him the armor to have the courage to test it. At least she uses the exact same thing back on William. So it's like, I did not like this because I was like, it's just kind of an obvious ploy. But like I said, I love that then they turn it around later and he falls for the exact same ploy as she did, like, because she pricks his pride, and so it's not that she has a soft heart. It's that she has great pride in the work that she does. And so that's what makes her angry, is anyone doubting her work, not anyone being like, not having a soft heart because she's a woman. So there's nothing wrong with having a soft heart because you're a woman. William has the softest heart in the whole movie, but it's just I love that that's the way that they went. They didn't know the fact that you were a woman wasn't even mentioned. They don't go that way. They go for her skill. They go for the thing that's actually going to piss her off. So yeah, I like that a lot. So.
And of course, then she does eventually become part of their crew, and I really do love her character. This later on, I tried to find some shots that actually maybe show her face, but this is a humorous moment when William's going through some self punishment. We'll get to that later.
Keep throwing the wood splinters at them. Yeah. I love.
And actually, I don't know the actress's name offhand, but she's
Laura
actually
Fraser, I think.
But she's actually been on Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Which was cool. When I watched Breaking Bad for the first time, I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
So picking up, so we get to the first confrontation between William and Adamar, which things actually seem to go well at first, where William actually, is winning at first, and Adamar's not even, breaking any of his lances on. And there's that shot of where he looks up and he sees the fist on top of his lance, not even, hasn't even broken. And that's at the moment where okay, things are going to turn now, and it's going to go really bad.
This is another place where I love the contrast in aesthetic. With William looking poor. He's got the armor that has like it's got the big like soldering thing in the middle, and his sort of raggedy horse and his armor that isn't his. And then you get the shot of Adamar, and everything is sleek and black and clean and reeks of money, and I love the aesthetic there. Between the two of them, and how imposing it makes Adamar look. Like how we already know he's imposing. We've met him and stuff. How imposing it makes him look with all of this. He just looks like a killing machine, you know, like, and it's so great in comparison to, again, just raggedy William, who's like, yeah, she basically put some tape on this armor, it's fine, you know. So yeah, but it's I that's another shot that I love too. And this is another place too where you were saying the score, the actual score, not just the contemporary score. Like you said, you know, you can sort of tell that things are going to start going bad, and there's that shot of the list, and you don't even see Adamar at first, but that music is playing, and then he comes around the corner on the horse, and it's just an awesome shot. Like, and it's the music and the shot, and like you said, you're like, oh man,
and
it's about
you
to get real. Yeah,
and you're talking about sort of juxtaposition during, you know, that final time when they're running against each other. Adamar is in slow motion and William is at normal speed, so that tips you off that okay, this is going to be bad.
Yeah.
And so yeah,
it's also the first time we get Adamar's crazy eyes too, when everyone's cheering for old Rick, and you could tell that he has just this like look that you're like, whoa, this is gonna go real bad for us. So yeah,
it's something about Rufus Sewell's eyes, it just, you know, put you at unease, and especially when he has those really dark, scary moments. It's like,
oh my gosh. Yeah, sorry. I was like, we missed the part where she gives her the favor. She gives William the favor, and says, and she said to tell you her name is Jocelyn. You know, and ooh, Jocelyn. He's so like excited to have her name, and I think that's so cute. Gives him the favor. But
my only gripe about that is that I don't think you really pick up on this on the first viewing, but I have noticed on later viewings, it's the fact that we've already heard her name spoken because of the conversation between her and Adamar. And so I kind of wish that was the first time we hear her name, but it still had the same impact for me the first time I watched the movie. I remember, because I think maybe at that point, maybe you're not paying very close attention on a first viewing. Right. But it's still, I think, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, I'm watching, I'm thinking as a writer, how do you not make that the first time we hear
the first reveal? Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's a good point. So, yeah. Yeah, but then he hits him, and then the favor's on the ground, and it's like you said, they just keep like piling dick moves upon dick moves with this guy until you're like, God, are you serious? Like, this guy.
Yeah, and then he picks it up
in the world. Yeah,
and it's just like, it's like, dude, she's not into you. Just get it. And
for making way less into you, you know? Like,
yeah.
You were trying to woo her, you're doing it incorrectly. So, but he doesn't really care about wooing her, but yeah. So
anyway, so even though William loses that, he has won the sword. So, he gets, you know, his trophy for that, and this, I don't know if this is a mistake or maybe just some oddity, but they did mention this in the director's commentary track, that the little gold trophy that they get is actually a jousting trophy when it should be a sword trophy, because that's what he won. So if you'll notice, the little guy is on a horse with a lance.
That's true, yeah. Adamar gets like a weird shield, though. It's like some sort of wavy thing. I don't even know what it is, but yeah, so
then maybe that can just be, you know, put down to the actual people who are putting on the tournament being like, who cares? Just make whatever.
This one's here, so yeah.
So they're making money off that. They're paying for Chaucer's, you know, for his debts, and William wants to take off because one, they need to get a head start on going to the next tournament, and also he has no intention of going to the banquet to be embarrassed by Adamar again. But then Christiana, Jocelyn's And what would we say she is?
I think she's a lady. Yeah.
Yeah. And she comes to say that Jocelyn wants to dress to match, and and there's that great moment where Chaucer says, "We regret to inform our lady that we won't actually be attending," and then William says, "And Harold, do not answer questions you don't know the answer to." Absolutely, my lord.
Absolutely, my lord. Turns right back around. I was like, yeah. And then I love Roland describing the tunic while looking at the tent. You know, like the green with a sort of pale green and
with wooden toggles. Which, by the way, there are no wooden toggles on the final outfit.
Not even the same material. The material is like green with rainbow on it, but whatever. So yeah. But no, I just
imagine your movie making.
I mean, whatever, it's fine. But I love his reaction. Oh, this is a disaster, you know. And everybody's like, "What?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't know how to dance." And then comes one of my other very favorite scenes in the whole movie with the what to lead. Yeah, and he gets hit. Oh my God, the teacher to dance is so funny. Your hand should alight like a birdie on a branch. You know, like I don't even know if Chaucer knows how to dance, and he's trying to like teach William how to dance, and
clearly he doesn't know very well because he's doing a terrible job teaching.
Yes, and then Kate comes and. You know, like that's like such a perfect reaction to the whole thing, you know, like but I love to ask her nicely because he's so in the tunic and stuff. This whole scene is just such a fun like break with these people, you know, like, and it shows how Kate like comes into the fold and stuff. But yeah, you're not gonna wear your hair like that, are you? Is there another way? Like he has no idea how to do that.
Which again that's another hilarious thing because I guess originally they had this conception where they were going to do something with his hair where it was like this silver thing that was, you know, done in some weird, you know, supposedly fashionable thing, and it just wasn't working. So they decided, nope, he is just going to wear his hair like that, and that'll be the joke.
Well, it's kind of combed back a little bit, I guess, you know. Yeah. So, but then we come to the party, which is like, first of all, I was like, is it weird that Adamar is at this party? Like, it seems like everyone is like, because he's clearly much older than the rest of them. I think Rufus Sewell is like 12 years older than Heath Ledger, but like he kind of looks like that guy that like buys the high schoolers beer and then around at their party. You know, like he's just standing there like a big creep, and he's way older. Well, I guess there's like one guy standing next to him that's also kind of older, but like he's just standing there like a big creep. He's not like even trying to dance or do anything like that. You know, it's like he's just such a weird presence at this party to begin with. But yeah, so.
Well, I guess, are we presuming that maybe the champions are invited to this?
Or maybe everybody is invited and they just don't show many more people who are Adamar's age. But it's just, like I said, it's such an odd. He just stands there. I mean, he says he tries to embarrass William with the dance and stuff, you know, but like he doesn't really do anything.
Well, so, this is actually another thing that was a deleted sequence from the film where his character is expanded a bit, where he's actually tone deaf and just doesn't get music. And that's like a point of this, but apparently that made that added some sympathy for the character, and the director's like, we don't want to feel sympathy for him.
No, we do not.
Yeah.
So yeah. But I also love when like Jocelyn and William first like start talking. Another thing, like I said, I'm just gonna have an air horn of me like gushing about how great Jocelyn is. It's gonna be wah, 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 wah. Here's another Jocelyn point, but. I love that when William is stumbling over his stuff about like, oh, you remind me of the Bible. And she's like, I'm sorry, what? You know, and then, like he says when he stopped the moon or the sun in the sky, and she literally is like, I don't understand. She doesn't laugh it off. She's not like, oh, that's so flattering. You know, she's like, I literally don't understand what the fuck you're saying. You know, like she tries to be nice about it, but she could just go along with it and be like, oh, yes.
Well, she responds exactly like any modern girl would respond to actually hearing that. It's like, what?
I know a lot of women, and this is not to say anything about women one way or the other, but like I know a lot of women who would be like, "Oh, that's so nice," because you feel stupid not understanding what they're referencing.
Oh, okay.
Instead, you just sort of feel. Plus, there's a lot of other. I won't go into like how being nice is a defense mechanism for a lot of women and stuff too, but that's clearly not the case here. But I think there's a lot of times that people go along with stuff because they don't want to admit they don't understand what's going on. And so she's like, she has no such qualms. She's like, I really dig you, but I'm not going to needlessly flatter you. I don't understand what the hell you're talking about. So yeah, so I really like that. It is sort of a weird analogy, but it is what it is.
For me, it's like, it's not even like the fact of like not getting it or anything, but it comes off as such a not romantic thing to say.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what, dude?
Yeah. Well, especially women like to be told you remind them of the Bible. Not a lot of women I'd like to be compared to in the old Bible. So
yeah.
I mean, yeah, but no, I like it though. I like it because it shows that all of his poetry is some of it is his. It's not all everybody else's. Like he really is able to sort of come up with a lot of this stuff on his own. He's not as smooth as Jeff is, but he's able to do a lot of this romantic.
Yeah, but I mean, he sells it once he gets everything out. She's, she really likes what she hears, and what's great is there's another deleted moment, which is where we're actually supposed to see Adamar for the first time right after that exchange, and he comes over and he's like, "Oh, nice to see you again, Sir Ulrich," faking being nice. And then he looks at Jocelyn and William is feeling like embarrassed again. And she's looking at Adamar and he says, "Jocelyn, you look great." And she's like coming off of William's, she's so impressed. So she just turns right back over to William and he has this smile on his face like, "Yep, I nailed it."
Yeah, I crushed it here. Yeah. But then we go into the dancing scene, and like you said, I forgot, you guys. I don't know if Stanley is ever going to talk to me again after I admit this, but like, I don't think I had ever heard a David Bowie song before this movie. This is still, every time I hear this song, I think only of this movie, and that's it. Like, I was not a David Bowie. I am not really a David Bowie fan, and I'm like, I think Sam Rixane might disown me now. But that also shows how cool I am. But this song is another really excellent use of modern stuff. But like you said, I love the way that Jocelyn just completely takes charge here. Like, yeah. William's floundering, and she just comes in, and with like one single clap, she's got the room. Everything is hers. Everyone is eating out of the palm of her hands there, and then they start the dance, which I demand that we all learn and flash mob the next con with. So I definitely want, especially the part where they're like doing all this stuff, like running, and yeah.
It's just, this is without a doubt one of my favorite sequences just in movies, period. I just love the way that it just slowly transitions into golden years, and you go from this very stiff traditional dance into just all the kids partying at him,
well, Adam present day, like a creepo by the table. Yeah.
It's great.
It is.
It's so much fun, but no, I get it, Erin, and especially because I'm a person who, I think when I was younger I was into some rock and roll music, but for most of my life I've very much been a film score classical music person. So a lot of songs that I hear tend to, I love them because I'm coming from a place of hearing them in a movie. And and so, yeah, oftentimes that'll be the way that I first hear a song, is because it's used in a really iconic way in a film. And this is, one such instance of that. Yeah. And And I love this song, and it's because I always think of this scene. It's
yes,
great.
100%, 100%. Yeah, it's got that mental connection for sure. So, yeah. But again, everyone's costumes in that are amazing too. Like even her, like Christiana looks just fantastic. There's a couple shots of her like dressed up and stuff. Everybody looks so good in that scene, except boring Adamar, but he's supposed to look great. So yeah. Although I think he has like a shoulder cape on that I am into. So yeah. But yeah, so anyway, I think then we go to the armor scene after that.
Yeah. And apparently the mark of her trade is two little Nike symbol, upside down Nike symbols. And they're making fun of the armor because it looks too small. But then she says, again, do you have the courage to test it? And they do, and it works like a charm.
Yes, and then it's followed up immediately with the contrast of like the guy trying to like heave himself up on his horse and like with his heavy armor, and he can't get on the horse, and then everyone's laughing at William as he comes through in his armor, and then he just swings right up on the horse like no problem. Then everyone stops laughing and they go back to the guy still trying to get on his horse in all the heavy armor. I love that. I just thought that was so funny. Like, swings right up, no big deal. So yeah.
And then another great Watt moment where, both him and Roland, where they're talking about the guy that William's riding against, and they're like, he increased taxes on his lands 3 times this year to pay for a tournament. His people starve while he feasts at banquets, and then under the horse, Watt's like, it's probably true.
I love that too. I love they manipulate him and then or one just annihilates him. So yeah, he like falls off his horse and everything. So yeah. That one is so good. But yeah, and this is the joustal where Adamar goes up against Colville, right?
Yeah, and they find out who he is, and so he withdraws.
But that's the good one is when his herald is trying to emulate Chaucer, and he's like
he's starting
it's enormous manhood, like, and they're doing the mirror trying to distract him. I love it. I love his terrible like praise of Adamar. It's so good while they're all trying to flash the mirror in his face. So yeah.
And so what's followed up is that they realize that would only have happened, if he is royalty, and that's why Adamar would withdraw, and so they're trying to figure out what's going on. And right before William's about to ride out against Colville, Chaucer comes back. He's found out that he's actually Edward, the Black Prince of Wales, and so they're telling him he has to withdraw, but William is like, nope. And
well, I love Purefoy's reaction when they put the white towel over the he just does this amazing where like his whole body just deflates. It's like the John side, but with more shoulder movement there. So yeah.
I'm sorry, Erin, but that is trademarked. Okay.
Well, this was before it was trademarked. So okay. Yeah, it's just, I love just the slump of his shoulders. I love how he conveys such disappointment in this thing he really wanted to do. And then
there's that great moment where William starts to charge, and then he smiles and he goes, Lance! Then he shuts the gate on his helmet and rides out. Such a great moment. I mean, I know James Purefoy does not have like the largest role in this film, but he's so good.
Yeah,
he's fantastic.
He is. But yeah, and then they have their conversation at John's side. Yes, exactly. So yeah, but and then they have their sort of conversation, and there's like I said, I love his sort of jaunty head tilt when he takes off his helmet and he's like,
"You knew me, and still you wrote."
Yeah. You wrote, and everyone, the crowd all gasps and stuff. I think that's so great. Like it's not in me to withdraw. Like nor me, but sometimes it happens. And you're like, okay, It's such a cool moment. And like I said, I think James Purefoy does a lot with very little in this particular joust for sure. So yeah. But yeah, then we come to the part that I think we might possibly disagree on. This is one of two very, very, very small, very, very small problems that I have with the movie, is that I wholeheartedly agree with and support William's philosophy that in order to be the best, you have to beat the best. That his victory is hollow without having defeated Adhemar, because Adhemar withdrew. What I don't think is very organic here is how angry he is about it. This is where he and Jocelyn get into a huge fight because he's livid for some reason that he won but didn't beat Adhemar, even though like there was a reason for it and stuff. Again, I fully support like victory over lesser opponents is hollow. You know, I understand that, but his anger here feels very plot device and not very organic, because then he starts yelling at everybody and then he yells at her. Although I do love, what are you wearing to banquet? Nothing. Well, then we shall cause a scandal because I'll dress to match, you know. And like she's so taken aback by how angry he is that like she's thrown off only for a second, you know, like she tries to come back with, you know, a flower's only as good as its petals, but she immediately sort of regroups here and throws everything that he's saying right back in his face. Like, what you're doing is not nearly so like important as you think it is. It's not more important than me dressing. You're a silly boy with a horse and a stick and that. But I do not feel as though his anger feels justified here. It feels very plot devicey to me for him to have this much anger, because he doesn't know Adhemar is going to go away. So far as he knows, he can face Adhemar next week or next month or whenever the joust is. It's not like this was the last time of the season and he's never going to be able to do it again. This was one tournament. So it seems like it comes out of nowhere, and it's not justified through the circumstances. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's funny because this actually came up in the commentary track where the director acknowledged this as something that some people had brought up to him, that it seemed a little bit out of the blue that he's so angry. I think the reasoning is that, you know, he just really has it out for Adhemar at this point, because he's, you know, just been antagonized by him and really kind of ridiculed by him. So I think he feels this sort of real personal animosity towards Adhemar, and that's kind of overcoming everything. I'm not saying that it's, you know, because you raise a very good point, and maybe it is just to sort of push not even the plot, but the character dynamics in a certain direction. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that, you know, could be right. It wasn't something that seemed off to me when I watched the film, you know, on prior occasions. But no, I can see that. And that's a fair criticism, especially since the director acknowledged that. Yeah. I think so it is a solid point.
Yeah, and like I said, it comes with great character development. Like I said, I love that she's like, fuck you, man. Like, what are you doing that's more important than me? Nothing at all that's more important than me. You know, but she's taken aback by how pissed he is all of a sudden, and she should be. You know, like, it's funny because it's usually like people accuse women of having these mood swings, but William has the biggest mood swing in the whole freaking thing. So
you know, I think also the reason probably why it plays okay for me is because, like, I kind of get that whole getting way too angry over something that maybe you shouldn't be dwelling on so much, that, you know, there will be another occasion. But sometimes and particularly for me, it sometimes comes in the form of family squabbles where it's like I'll, you know, get far too annoyed or pissed off about something that I should probably just let go. So I think it's the fact that I kind of recognize that, but it's, again, it is also very much to push the characters in a certain direction. So you have this conflict, which then has to be resolved. So
right.
So yeah.
Right. So yeah. It was just
But
something I always noticed. I'm always like, dude, it's, and then, like I said, obviously, I think if he had gotten angry after he figured out that Adamar was not going to be in any of the tournaments anymore, like that would have made a little bit more sense to me. You know, like that he was angry, that he was like, I can't, how can I, these victories are all hollow now because I can't defeat the other best there is, you know? So I that just sort of would have made more sense to me. But yeah, because then he starts just wiping the floor with everybody, you know, after Adamar is out, and that's not, if you are like a true competitor, that's not what you want. You don't want to win over an easy field, you know. So, but yeah, so
I just find it funny that several people seem to have this criticism. I'll be honest, it's not something that ever really struck me when I was watching the film before. So
yeah,
but there is I do love just their whole exchange, and as you say, she doesn't give an inch. She's like, you're being completely ridiculous, and then the scene is capped off by that, you know, another great Watt line where she storms off, and after she says, better a silly girl with a flower than a silly boy with a horse and a stick, and then Watt yells after her, it's called a lance. Hello.
Totally. Yeah, it's very good, and it's a really, really good conflict. It's just sort of, like I said, the way that it's brought about feels a bit shocking, you know. But yeah, so do we go right to the letter again? What's in between?
Just again with you know, they're at another joust, and then he gets the news that Adamar, you know, has been called away, and you know, and so he won't be returning at least for some time. And then he's even more angry about that. And then we actually see a scene.
First Jocelyn, now Adamar. You know, like, what? But you know.
It's like, you know, Chaucer's like, well done. And then Kate's like, yeah, well done. And he's like, what? And then we get that scene on the battlefield where apparently, with everything else that Adamar is probably dealing with, he's decided to have his herald make sure that he's clued in.
He's got time for this. He's got time to check the scores. Yeah, he sure does. So yeah.
But what I do love about this is the herald does kind of look like, you know, he might just kill me for delivering bad news.
Yeah. He's just, like you said, not only is he worrying about this, but like, in order to just add to his vileness, like, this makes him commit fucking war crimes. Like, he's so mad that he can't be there to joust that he commits war crimes. You know, like, they just keep piling on how awful Adamar is. Like, as this goes on, just more and more and more and more keeps getting added there, you know. So it's terrible, you know. So yeah, but anyway, I guess I got a little ahead of myself there, but you can see that's when he makes the decision, basically, you know. So yeah,
in case it isn't clear by now, we're going over because we're not yet close to the end of the film, but we're going to try and trudge ahead. But yeah, we're running over, which is fine because I'm loving this. So then we do go to the letter writing scene, it's a great scene because we find out so much about each of the characters, and
very organically.
And their sort of personal trauma and things that they've been through with loved ones who, you know, either they've had their heart broken or the person they love has died. And this actually factors in with part of Kate's story because, again, another tidbit from the commentary track where, you know, in medieval times of, you know, if a blacksmith died, their wife would be permitted to take over the trade. and so that's kind of her backstory, and she talks about her husband having passed away, and which is why she's able to do what she does. And so that's actually a historically accurate bit, even though it might not seem like it.
So much easier to point out the bits that are historically accurate.
Yeah. And so Watt is, delivering this letter, which has all this poetry because it's, coming from.
I love them too, talking about like what they should, what should he pray? Oh, her breasts. Look above her breasts. Her
throat.
Yeah. In case that, well, the stars, at least her breasts aren't that impressive. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's true, but not really relevant here. Let's definitely look to the stars anyway. But yeah, so it is a nice letter, and I love that everybody gets their part in it. Also, I think Watt is wearing the same tunic that Sir Ector is wearing in the flashback scene. When he delivers that letter, it's pink and it's got a bunch of like, I don't know. I took some photos. So far as I can tell, it's the same piece of clothing, but I'm not totally sure. It's extremely similar regardless. But I was kind of charmed by, like, obviously they kept some of it via necessity, but like if William had that green in his hair before, that meant that was like Sir Ector's colors. So it seems like they kept a lot of like Sir Ector stuff for all that Watt beat the shit out of his corpse when he died. It seems like they had some real genuine affection for Sir Ector, and they kind of carried his, at least what they could on, with them. You know what I mean? Like there's just little touches that seems like that's what they did. So unless the commentary says something different, but that's just kind of what I took away from it. They changed the sigil, but like, the other parts of it, I think it looks like a lot of his stuff, so.
Yeah, and I do like some of the intercutting in this scene as she's reading bits of the letter, and then it cuts it back to them, like when Watt's like, he's having this emotional moment, but still, the way Alan Tudyk plays it, you're kind of chuckling along to him. He's like, I miss her like the sun misses the flower.
Boy, and then he's kind of smooth when she says he rewrites as though I have died. He dies as well, my lady. Like he's kind of got some game going there too. Like he's no slouch in the romance in the ladies department. So
And of course, my master hoped you might have something to send him in return, and then that smile she gives.
Yes.
Great. And then we get that great scene, coming up where well, first they get the news, no Adamar, so that's that's unfortunate, but not for the audience, because we don't want to see him. Let's have some more fun time before we get all moody again.
Exactly.
And Watt comes back, and he's smiling because she's he leaves William in suspense. But he's like, she's coming to Paris, and so it's like, well, did she give you something being returned? He's like, yeah. Well, what is it, Watt? Come on, give it to me.
Give it to me.
And then it's the kiss, and
excited Heath Ledger is while rolling upper, like he's so excited, and it's so cute. Oh, I love Watt spits after oh my god, so good.
And then William's reaction of yes.
He's like running back and forth like a cartoon almost. Like I love it. I just think it's his reaction is so adorable. So yeah. Oh, but yeah, then we actually go to Paris, quote unquote Paris. Definitely not Notre Dame where they are. That's the church in Prague Castle. But even the facade is not the same. I was like, is that no? Never mind. No, this was all filmed in Prague. Never mind. So beautiful church still, but this is another. I love the scene. I love them in the church when he's just totally blowing it. Like after she's like trying to forgive him, and then he's just absolutely blowing it. Like their beauty will be reflected in the flanks of my horse. Oh, it's so terrible.
Yeah, and your breasts, they're above your throat.
She's like, what?
It's like, just try, William.
Anything, man. Anything. Again, he's not incapable of it. We've seen you do this, and he just apparently, I'm not ready, you know. And she's like, again, she's not letting him off the hook at all. Here, she's giving him absolutely no quarter, and like, why must it be like when you're, you know? So
yeah, Kate, this is a moment that I love.
Yeah,
it's great.
You might as well use it just to freshen up a little bit, you know. So.
What I really love about this is the way virtually everything is just this wide shot instead of cutting back and forth between the characters, which apparently the director did go ahead and say that it's, you know, as much as he'd like to take credit for that, a lot of it came down to how much time they had to shoot the scene. But it turned out to be good because it's very effective. That they don't cut in for close-ups until the very end of the scene, because that's when they're saying lines like, when he says, "I will not lose," and she says, "Then you do not love me." Those are moments that you need on close-up. And the whole thing with that is she's, told him that to prove his love, he has to lose.
Yeah. Yep. I love the wide shot too, though, because you can see everyone else's reactions to like them walking back and forth. There's like someone kneeling, and then there's like some people over here that are watching them in the background and stuff, and everyone is actually like reacting to them arguing. They're all whispering and kind of, so I think that's another benefit of that really, really wide shot, is that you get to see a bunch of other reactions, and then that the priest comes over and tries to shush her.
Do not shush me and spare him. Now be gone. Go.
From the movie we watched a couple weeks ago. It feels like a perfect Ruby Rod, like zzz, get out of here. Like I don't actually want you anywhere near me. Zzz, get out. I love it so much. I just think it's great. But I also, again, I love this idea. She brings up an excellent point, like to honor me with your high reputation. This is actually a real, actually like an Arthurian story called The Knight of the Cart. Guinevere tells Lancelot that he needs to lose the tournament in order to prove his love. So this is actually taken from Guinevere and Lancelot, which Chaucer later references. But it's an actual story. This wasn't something that A Knight's Tale came up with, but it's so brilliant. Yeah. Like it's so good that she's like, no, you will absolutely, sorry. Don't honor me with your glory. Like I'm not having this. Like, shame yourself. Like, give up your pride in order to prove that you love me. And I think it's wonderful, especially especially in her place. Like no other man is going to do that. No other man is going, she says to put it, it shows that you put your lover's needs above your own. And that's no other man is going to do that she knows. So she's wondering if he's just like everybody else or if he is like the guy, so I love this as a test, so, and you can see why William doesn't want to do it either, especially coming from where he came from, where he was sort of subservient and all this other kind of stuff, but she forces him to make a choice. She forces him to make the choice for himself. She does not thrust it upon him. She sort of forces him to make the choice for himself. And I like it very much. I think it's a very clever conceit.
It's also funny seeing how I've kind of changed myself over the years, because I'm sure at the time that I originally saw this, I was like, okay, that's completely unreasonable. Come on. But now I'm like, no, that's a pretty good way to go about it,
Yep.
And in fairness, she doesn't know that, and he may not even know that his buddies have wagered their entire, everything that they have on this. And maybe if I figure William probably maybe doesn't know, which is maybe why he doesn't bring it up, because that might be a relevant thing. It's like, It's not just about me.
Yeah. No, I don't get the impression that he does know.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
But yeah, so without that on the table, I think, that's a perfectly reasonable, way for her to go about establishing that he means what he means.
Yeah, what he said. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I do love that scene in the tavern, though, when they're wagering with the Frenchmen and stuff, and like, they're between the insults thrown back and forth, and like Roland's like breaking point is the Pope is French, and all this stuff,
It's like, it's the most ludicrous thing when he says, well, the Pope may be French, but Jesus is English. It's like, no. No,
he's not. He's not, but whatever, it's fine. So yeah. But then I love their chants. Like, he's blonde, he's pissed, he'll see you in the Liechtenstein. No, I don't. Anyone told Laura Fraser any of the words, because she clearly doesn't know any of them. She's like throwing her tankard around, and I was like, did anyone like share any of these? No, okay. So yeah, it's good though. I like the confrontation between the English and the French. So yeah, it makes me laugh.
And Paul Bettany has this facial expression on his face when he just like, come on, hey, he calls it his Robert De Niro impression.
Totally, he really does. So yeah. But then we go to him actually writing out. I love the three.
What are you doing? Losing. I don't understand. Neither do I.
And then they're like, no, he's like doing a come from behind victory to make it more exciting. I said, no.
Jocelyn said I should lose to prove my love. Chaucer is then like, oh, I'd rather you were blind.
Oh, it's so good. And this is another, let me get my feminist horn out here. But I love that this is where like Kate shows that, like, he's like, are you a woman or a blacksmith? Sometimes I'm both, like, and then later, like, Roland says something like women, and she just gives him a look. Like, it's like she's in a masculine trait, but she's still like very, very obviously a woman. They don't make her like other girls are stupid or anything like that. She's still very obviously like feminine.
Well, I think in our group we've had a lot of talk about how sometimes the way that filmmakers will sort of try to be feminist is make their female characters just very masculine and one of the boys. And what's great about that moment between her and Roland is he's then talking to her in that moment like she is one of the guys, and her look just sets him straight. It's like, no.
Yeah, I'm a woman. Like, yeah, like you said, it's very, they give her a masculine trait, but don't make her a dude, like she, and I really love that about it as well. So, I think it's, I just really like that about it. So, yeah, but I love the scenes of all the lances breaking where, like I said, somebody's obviously just throwing like shards of wood onto the
and then Kate just grabs the big piece. Apparently she had to do that over and over, and this is another instance of talking about sort of sexism, where the director says that he stupidly asked her if she could do it, thinking like he says, I regret doing that because I probably wouldn't have asked a guy if he could do it. So I think he kind of caught himself in that. But what was great is she caught that damn piece, big piece, like every single time they did a take. So she was on for it. And, and it's just a great shot. And the whole thing, it's the repetition of all the wood just flying all over the place.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I like that too. And then there's what are they? Are they like putting his shoulder back into socket? Like, what are they doing with that weird twisty machine? Like, I was like, boy, that looks horrifyingly painful.
Oh, and that sound effect of it popping back into place. I'm like, I felt that. Oh. And then Christiana comes down and she's like, my lady says that if you love her, I know I must lose. She says, if you love her, you will not lose another match. And the way he rolls his eyes.
Oh, yes, and then there she is, Venus, like
the embodiment of your love, your Venus. Oh, and how I hate her.
How I hate her. I mean, yeah, that's kind of understandable at that point. Yeah, but like I said, that's another good. She takes from him, but then she gives back to him. She says, "Okay, you've proven your point. Now you get your glory. Now you get your, your recognition. Like you've done as I asked, and I'm not greedy. Like you've proven your point, and now you can have your recognition. So now you can have what you want. So yeah, I like it a lot, but."
And so he's able to come up from behind, and he wins. So,
yeah,
so
of course he does.
So they get to make money instead of losing it. And,
yeah,
and they're good to go. And then I like. Then there's the next scene where she's going into his tent, and there's the allusion to Lancelot and Guinevere, and that Chaucer makes, and it's at this point that she says, okay, so I know that, that your men, they call you William. And it's great because in that moment, she doesn't really care. She just doesn't want him to lie to her.
Yes.
And so that's a test. And he right away confirms and says, yes, that's true. And she doesn't ask anything more than that. She just wanted to make sure that he would be honest to her.
Well, and that's important too for me from a woman's perspective, that when she does have sex with him, she does it with no deception between the two of them. She knows, especially like as a highborn woman, you could say that him being highborn versus lowborn could be important to her, that she did not want to give her virginity to somebody that she could not marry. So she could, if he were to have deceived her in that way, that's a pretty big deception. It's not just about like her being snobby or her being whatever, but like as a woman at the time, her virginity was obviously very highly prized. And for her to give it to somebody that she would have assumed she could marry is probably, I'm guessing would have been very important. But before that happened, she sort of figures out what's going on. So she's able to make an informed decision about the whole thing. And that was important to me watching it as well. Like before they decide to take that next step, she knows not who he says he is. And that makes me feel better about her being able to fully give her willing consent to the partnership, So for all that scene, he calls her girl and he calls her woman, and there's a lot of stuff that kind of makes me wrinkle my nose. They avoid a lot of missteps in movie that other movies do not when it comes to sort of feminist representation, and I really appreciate that. So that this scene, especially with her, she doesn't need to know exactly, but there's not really deception between the two of them. So yeah.
And then following that, we get they're on their way back to London for the championships, and we get I was wondering actually if that was just me. Stephen, your audio was a little choppy there.
Sorry. Is it better now? Sorry.
Yeah, it seemed to be a little intermittent for me, so I don't know. Hopefully it won't be too much of a problem.
My signal is strong, so it might have just been a little bit choppy, but
yeah, you sound good now. So yeah, well, we'll just keep going.
Okay.
And so we get the flashback of this is actually our second flight. There was a flashback earlier between William and his father, and this is another one where he's giving him over to Sir Ector for an apprenticeship, and what's cool about this scene for me is the actor is actually I recognized him as the guy who played Little John in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Oh yeah, yes. I'm drowning. I can't swim. I'm on one side. I'm on the other side. Oh my god. Yeah. All right. Anyway, love that movie. But, yeah.
And so, yeah, so that's great, and it's establishing this, you know, sort of emotional farewell between father and son before we get the reunion, which is coming up later. Of course, the one, you know, curious thing is that the Sir actor in this scene does not look very much like the Sir actor that we saw at the beginning of the movie, but
I mean, it was 12 years ago or whatever, you know. Yeah. Who doesn't look different then? But yeah.
But yeah, and so that leads into the, you know, when they actually get back to London, and you've got that great use of, you know, the boys are back in town.
Yeah.
As they're, you know, coming in, and, you know, it's like the big parade.
I love it. That's Charles Bridge going over at first too, which is also in Prague. They've added like some towers in and stuff, but I love this whole thing. I love how like proud like they are to be like carrying his standards and all that stuff. I just think the whole thing is, yeah, exactly. Yeah, give us a shout out, London. Oh, but yeah, I love it. They're clearly like having the time of their lives, you know. But I
yeah. And then, of course, so we get into the stadium, and then there's, you know, Adamar has returned, and of course he's got to, you know, once again be a dick and, you know, talk about how he, you know, first how he values women, you know, in that he places them third on a list of, you know, what is it, trophies and
yeah, horses.
Of course, and you know, William has that line where he says, you know, he talk about Jocelyn like she's a prize, and he says, isn't she? And he says, no, she's the arrow.
The target and the arrow, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then of course he says, I've entered into negotiations with her father, so of course, you know, it's like, dude.
I wonder if that's true. I wonder if it's true if he says it just to sort of goad William, because Jocelyn is, I mean, again, you try not to make too many inferences about stuff, but Jocelyn does not get to be the way that she is by having a father who is strict and controlling and things like that. She obviously has a very doting and indulgent father who allows her to speak her mind and who values her as a person. And that's sort of how I don't think she ends up like she is if her father is the kind to sell her to the first bidder who comes along. You know, so again, I'm making some inferences here that are maybe a little bit of a reach, but it seems unlikely to me that if you look at who Jocelyn is, that her father would be selling her to, you know, to someone she absolutely did not want to marry. So I wonder if the Adamar was telling the truth or if he was trying to goad William.
Yeah, well, either way, it's one of the joys of these kinds of movies is you're like, well, you don't have to worry because that's not gonna be an issue once, you know, we get to our happy ending. Yeah, it's sort of the Wizard of Oz thing where it's like everything ends happily, so we don't have to worry about, you know,
things are going to turn out all right for us.
So following that, what comes?
That's when he goes to Cheapside next. So
yeah, so. Okay, there's that exchange where, you know, he's competing and Adamar is, you know, talking to, you know, some guy who we've never seen before, but evidently some kind of confidant. And he's like, how would you beat him? And he says, with a stick while he slept. On a horse, that man is unbeatable. And so then we get him going to Cheapside, and he takes a moment to talk and with this young girl who lives there, and he finds out through her that his father is actually still alive, but that he's blind. So he goes to see him, and I'm not gonna lie, like, I know the scene is cliche and it's cheesy and all that stuff, but like every time I watch this movie, I tear up at their reunion.
Yeah,
I totally cry.
Yep.
It's just great the way it builds up bit by bit.
Yes. Yep. Step by step. Yep. I totally agree.
Yeah. And by the time he gets to that point of, has he followed his feet? Has he come home at last? And then that beat while you're waiting, and then Heath Ledger says, yes. And then they hug, and it's like, oh. Yeah,
totally. Because it's like how, and you can see sort of why Ulrich did it like that, or why William did it like that, like he wanted to know if his father still cared, really, like you sort of assume that he did, but he starts out so that if his father is like, oh, well, I forgot about William years ago or whatever, he can save face and move on, but like, it's such a good scene in the way that it builds. And boy, that's some good makeup with that guy's eyes too. Those are some good contacts or whatever, because his eyes, one eye is really messed up and the other one is kind of clouded. So I appreciate the costuming there, I guess. So
yeah, I mean, the actor who plays the father just did a really good job, and
he did, yes.
Yeah, it's great.
But yeah, then they're talking about the roof leaking and they're talking about his life and stuff, and it's so nice. And I don't know, is there a missing scene in between here? Because it's just sort of random that weird lady is like pointing to Adalmar. Are we supposed to sort of assume she had been following?
Yeah, this is a couple of cut moments. There was a moment earlier on where Simon the Summoner actually goes to Adalmar. Well, he goes to his herald first, and then they go to speak to Adalmar. And it's actually a bit that's in the trailer where he says, Ulrich von Liechtenstein is not who he appears to be. And so this is the thing that tips him off. And then another moment that's cut that I don't think is in the theatrical version. I could be wrong, but it is in the extended cut, is you get a shot of that woman following William.
Yeah, that's definitely
through the streets.
She just shows him through the talking to Adalmar, basically. So.
Okay. So yeah, so those are bits that they are in the extended cut that was put out back in like 2007, I think.
Okay.
There was a period where Sony was putting out like extended cuts on DVD of like half of their film library, because they realized that they could sell more DVDs if they put out extended cuts. So they're not necessarily direct cuts.
Yeah.
Although I think the director did have input in this instance. But I just kind of look at it as a strange oddity of a couple of years where everything was getting an extended cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. So following that, then we cut to the scene in the stable where William is talking about being so happy that his father's alive. And I do love that line of, I thought he was dead, which is mad because he was always so strong, very strong.
Yeah.
And then of course, in Jocelyn and Chaucer come in and deliver the bad news that Adalmar has found out and that they asked for the patents of nobility, and they've found out that he isn't who he says he is. So they're going
someone died. Sir Ulrich von Liechtenstein. Yeah.
This is another moment that's played very serious. There's a lot of drama in this scene, and just you really feel the relationships. And when the first person he turns to is Roland. He says, Roland, you would have me run, and he just gives the nod, and then he says, and you, Jeff, and he says, yes, I wish it with all the pieces of my heart. And then he says, Watt, you and I, we aren't runners. And Alan Tudyk gives this great little smile, like in the past they would have gone all in and done whatever. He says, yes, today we are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just great. And then that whole thing with Jocelyn, where he just talks about, what they could possibly do. And, and she's very sort of optimistically saying that, she's willing to, give up whatever. And, she says line that the poor can marry for love. And he's kind of in that moment, he's like, he says, you speak of what you do not know, because he's lived that life.
Yep.
And so he has a different perspective on it. And just when everybody's urging him to run, and then he just, in that moment, sort of explodes and says, no, I will not run. And I have to say, Shannyn Sossamon is great in this scene. Just the way she closes her eyes and the tears come down. She's fantastic. I mean, everybody is fantastic in this scene. And so, and then once it's clear that he's not going to run, Roland's like, well, boys, all good things must come to an end. Let's end them together. And again, that music, the Carter Burwell music comes in as they're walking out together.
Yeah, it's interesting that scene though. I always wonder. I think Jocelyn is telling the truth as she believes it in the moment, but that scene reminds me a lot of Game of Thrones after the Dragon Pit, when everyone is really pissed at Jon Snow because he wouldn't lie to Cersei and say, "Yeah, I won't support Queen Daenerys." He tells the truth, and then when people are trying to give him shit for it, he says, like, "Who am I? If I lie, what good is my word? What good is my word if I can break it at any sort of convenience? Like, who am I if I'm the kind of person who does this?" And I think that there's a lot of that reminds me of what William is trying to say here to everybody. Jocelyn loves William because William is the kind of guy who does not run. If he runs, is he William anymore? That's such a huge part. Like his fearlessness, unwillingness to back down, his honor and his dignity are like such a huge part of him. If he runs, is he still William? Is he still the same person that she fell in love with to begin with? Or does that immediately sort of start to erode? Does she sort of look at him then and not see the same person that she fell in love with because he did this thing that's totally against his nature? Like I said, just like with Jon Snow lying for convenience. Jon Snow's not Jon Snow if he lies. William isn't William if he runs.
Bye, Stephen.
Oh, bye, Stephen.
Yeah.
So I wonder. I think
it's
different as she feels it at the time, but I always wonder, like, if he runs, does she still love him after a year, or is she just looking at this guy who is not the same guy? You know what I mean?
I think sort of in that moment, when it comes down to sort of, not wanting any harm to come to this person who you care so much about, that you're kind of shoving all that stuff aside and you're like, you just want them to be safe. And
yes,
and
100%.
so I think that she's totally on board with him running, at least in the moment, as to what effect that might have on, on their relationship later on. Because I mean, if he ran in that moment, I think that he would carry the weight of that, and more than anything, moving forward. So I think that he would be a very different person, and and sort of, it's interesting. But I do think in those types of situations, it's like you don't tend to care about all that stuff. You're focused on just the person you care about not being in danger.
Right. I totally agree. It's just more when I think about, like, 2 years down the road, is it the pigs that are going to get Jocelyn, or is it the fact that this guy is kind of not the same guy that she fell in love with. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just the thing I think about it all.
Yeah, I mean, see, I mean, I'd kind of agree with that if he was able to just sort of accept that and then brush it off, you know, in the aftermath of that. But I think he would very much carry the weight of having run off. So I think it would be more of a deal for him than for her, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, now we can go to the slow-mo walking scene. So,
which is great, and we just mentioned earlier about Chaucer's, you know, upgraded outfit, and this is one of those moments where you know, you just see him walking in slow motion in this thing.
Totally. It's such a better. It's got like split sleeves, and yeah, it's totally beautiful compared to the raggedy ass one he had earlier. So.
It's like, I'm sorry, I'm just cracking up because there's this moment coming up where they're stopped, and it's like, I love in like, I don't love it in like serious, like, you know, sort of Oscar-worthy dramas, but in sort of just movies that are fun and more lighthearted and sort of popcorn movies, I do kind of love the overacting bit players. Like in all the Star Wars movies, when you have the Imperial guys who are like, "Good, our first catch of the day," and
Totally.
and then this scene, you've got the guy who walks up and says, "You will remove yourself from this position of honor," and he says, "I am here to compete.
You will remove yourself.
You are here to be arrested."
It's so good. It's so like, wow, this guy really made the most of his 2 lines, didn't he? You know, so yes, exactly. You will remove yourself. It's so good. And then he's got like that bowl haircut that you can't even take him seriously because he's got that haircut, and then his total overacting. Yes, I agree 100% with that. Oh, so good. Yeah, but then we cut to the stocks. Wah, wah.
Yeah, and there's a scene with
the squire. Yeah.
No, with Adamar when he goes to see William.
Oh yeah.
First, and he's got that whole speech, which is just like, just pile up the douchiness.
Yep, he's piling in on.
You know, you have been weighed, you have been measured, and you have been found wanting. And
hitting a defenseless man and saying that, you know, you're like, God, what? There's just no self-awareness there, eh? No, okay. So yeah.
What world could you have ever beaten me? And and so then we cut to the stocks, and I have to talk about this scene, not just because it's a great scene, but because this is the moment where probably the biggest of the deleted scenes, and anybody who loves this movie, you need to look up this deleted scene on YouTube if you haven't ever seen like the extended cut or anything, because, you know, it starts off with, you know, you've got Chaucer, Kate, Watt, and Roland standing by William, you know, guarding him. And in the movie, you know, you cut to the Black Prince coming out and sort of saving the day. But in the full version of the scene before that, Chaucer delivers this impassioned speech to the crowd. And seriously, like, I know that this wasn't exactly like an Oscar type of movie, but I've always felt like if this version of the scene had been left in, I at least would have been championing Paul Bettany for Best Supporting Actor nomination, even if it had no chance of happening, because he is so emotional in this moment. And it's been a while since I've seen it, so I don't remember the dialogue, but it's just this really emotional. He's got tears in his eyes, and he's, you know, he's talking about, you know, how great of a man William is, and, you know, how much he embodies, you know, what it is to be a knight and all this stuff. And it's such a great moment. And for me, it really does sort of bring Chaucer's character full circle. And you feel like this is the culmination of sort of that earlier scene where he's saying, will you help me? I promise you won't regret it. This is the culmination of that. Now, the problem with the full scene is that he so completely turns the crowd around in favor of William that there's kind of nothing left for the prince to do.
Prince to say.
Yeah. And so it kind of robs his action of any real drama, which is why that speech had to go. But it's probably the best sequence of the film. But that's what editing is. It's killing your babies when the movie just needs it. And so the moment with the Black Prince is so good, and it's just the way he delivers those lines of what a pair we make, both trying to hide who we are, both unable to do so.
I also love how conspicuous his inconspicuous druid robe is. It's like these three guys standing like this in pointy hoods. It's like, that's like way more conspicuous than if you were just standing in the crowd,
Yeah, and so the moment where, I love that he completely fibs. He's like, he may appear to be of humble.
And I'm like, hello.
May appear to be of humble origins, but my personal historians have, discovered that he is descended from an ancient royal line. This is my word. And as such is beyond contestation. I love the way he delivers.
The way he says it, it's like, yeah.
And then he turns around and he says, now if I may, repay, the service you once did me, take a knee. And again, that Carter Burwell music, it kicks up, and you're just feeling the moment. And then, he knights him Sir William. And, it's such a great moment. And again, it's like, coming on the heels of the Chaucer speech kind of loses some of its, drama, which is why that part had to go. And actually in the extended cut of the film, they do some weird editing with it to try and, do the Chaucer speech, but without the crowd completely being sold yet. But the cut is weird because it's like when they cut to the Black Prince, like 1 minute the crowd is silent, and the next minute they got their like hands in the air kind of doing this. So the cut doesn't completely work, but I see that they were trying to put that scene back in a way that worked, which I'm glad that version is out there. But as far as the theatrical version, the scene is fantastic because that whole knighting thing is just, I remember getting chills down my spine when I saw the movie.
Heath Ledger, like his face and like it's in the faces of everybody else. It's so good. It's so good. And then he says, like, are you fit? Like, can you compete? And it's like, well, of course he can compete. Like there's nothing he would love.
The way he says, I shall have your opponent informed of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can tell that everyone hates the giant douche that is Count Adelmeyer. But yeah, so yeah. Yeah, but then we finally get into the stadium, and it's like, here it is. Here's the culminating thing, So yeah.
Oh, and by the way, Adelmeyer hasn't made enough dick moves throughout the film, so let's add one more.
Right on top of the dick meat sandwich. Here, we're just gonna add one more slice on top. They're really taking over the top, but yeah. Is that the same lady, the same spy?
Yeah.
It's just spun sugar and boot black. Oh,
yeah.
Cool. Like you just get so pissed. Oh.
And yeah, so for time they ride against each other, and he gets it stuck right there, and it's bad, and then they pull it out, and the tip is left in, and
you're the surgeon now, Roland. It's, and I don't know, so here is again where I think you and I might disagree a little bit. You were talking earlier about it being a little bit corny. Here I think is where the ending does go bit cheesy for me, especially because, like you said, with the drama here. So I love that Jocelyn brings his dad. You know, like I love that this all happens, and I love Chaucer's sort of toned down version of the speech and everything like that. But like, there's like all this drama, and then Watt says this, you know, that's your name, William. Your father heard that. I think that's good enough. I don't think you need William like that. And then his father looking up and crying, like it just goes a little into schmaltzy there at the end for me.
I'm totally on board for that. I really am.
It's just I thought you were going to disagree with me, because I was like, John's heart is a little bit softer than mine when it comes to this kind of stuff. But like that Watt line is so good, and then you just kind of keep piling on and on and on to that, you know. And I like the you have been weighed, you have been measured, you know, like I like that part, but it's just the William and the dad, it's like a few drops too much. Then it takes it just a little bit overboard there for me. So
I don't really have an opinion on the dad moment. I think for me it plays well into the drama. I think the William moment is important because that's for him, that's sort of the culmination of building up to, you know, someone who's been hiding from who he is for the entire length of the film. I think that's a moment of him claiming that for himself, and that this is his victory. And so I don't know. I think the moment's fine. So you were right. And we'll just disagree on that. But the thing is, but unquestionably, the moment of this scene is the exchange with Watt. Mm-hmm. And just, I was sort of talking about the brilliance of Alan Tudyk the other day on another stream, because I think we were talking about something else with you know, comedic actors tackling, you know, like a really dramatic moment, and I brought this moment up. It's great because Watt has been so much the comic relief for the film, and it's really tough, I would imagine, for an actor to be able to, you know, be presented with that and then to really sell you know, a key emotional beat. Like this is so important to get right, and he just really tugs at the heartstrings, and it's just, it is a favorite moment, and because it carries so much weight. And I just love the way he says, "That's your name, Will." Mm-hmm. Sir William Thatcher, your father heard that. And
especially because it's a line you might have expected to be given to Roland.
Yeah.
You know, like, because Roland is the one that everyone's looking at and stuff, but they give it to Watt instead. And it, for some reason, it's just better coming from him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Full on John sigh for that. It's so good. And this again, we're talking about having seen a lot of actors for the first time in this movie. And, you know, just like with Paul Bettany, this was the first movie that I saw Alan Tudyk in, and there's a reason why I loved him after this movie.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
And I got excited when I first saw the TV commercials for Firefly and saw him in those ads, and I was like, cool. You know, things didn't work out so well for Firefly, but still, it was great once he started popping up and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. It's like I said, that's such a good moment. I just kind of wish there was like nothing after that except the victory, you know. But I get there has to be other things too. So,
well, Amy agrees with you.
yeah. So, but then there's the whole kiss at the end too. I was kind of like, okay, that's enough rotating camera there, you know.
No, I love it. It's the big, you know, sure off with the Hollywood, you know, kiss. It's like, you know, that's Dan. And I have one more bit of trivia for this moment, actually.
Is it the stars?
No. No, it's the song that picks up once, after the line of that great exchange between Chaucer and Watt. I'm gonna write some of the story down. The part about the prince and the knights. No, all of it. All human activity, resides in the author's scope. Maybe not yours. Of course, Watt finally,
Yeah, they finally get along. Yeah.
And he takes it for the joke that it is. And that's when the final song, kicks on. I don't remember what song it is, but actually there's a difference.
All night long.
There's a difference between the US and the UK versions. In the US version, that song plays first, takes us into the end credits, and then there's a rendition of "We Are the Champions," which actually it's not the original version. It was newly recorded for the film by Queen and whoever was their lead singer at the time, and. But I believe in the UK version of the film, the song that leads into the end credits is that version of "We Are the Champions," which I might be curious actually to see that version. But either way, I think it works really well, and yeah, no, I don't know. I like the whole ending, so I'll just
And then like the thing that I noticed was that when they pan, there's the stars, and it's very clearly Orion, the hunter, and the constellation that they're showing and stuff. And I was like, I get it. So,
now I have something else to look out for.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so we really went through like every beat of that entire movie.
It deserves it. So
it's like, I can't talk about this movie without just no, it was definitely not Adam Lambert. This was all the way back in 2001. So
Adam Lambert was a baby then. So maybe not a baby. He wasn't that young, but still. So, but yeah, it's awesome. This is the first time I've watched it like all the way through. Like I said, I normally get it in bits and pieces, and I watched it twice, and I was like, God, this movie is awesome. There's a reason you want to go through every beat of it, and that's because every beat of it is great, like except for two very small exceptions for me. So, and me, like 2 things to complain about, only 2. That's like unheard of for me. So.
And I apologize to everybody else because, even though I sort of held to my disagreement on, especially the second thing, we didn't really get into a heated argument about it. So
that's all right. Everyone in the Slack can just wait till the next Zoom. So yeah.
Exactly. So I mean, any like final thoughts overall about the movie?
No, this is like, I love this movie. And also, like I said, it's like one of my brothers and my like special things, like besides God love you, because no one else will. Like I always say, I say when they ask Kate, will you teach us to dance? And she goes, no. And like the way that she says that, I say that all the time. And my brother knows exactly what I mean when I'm like, no. So there's that part of it too. And it's close to my heart because it's a good movie, and it's also like a special thing with my brother too, so yeah, I couldn't love it more, and it only benefits from repeat watching for me. So
yeah, I did want to mention something, which is because we talked about what the actors sort of went on to do, and it was great because a lot of people knew Mark Addy from this, and of course when he was announced to play Robert Baratheon, a lot of people were like, "What? No, he's just that funny guy from A Knight's Tale." But it just shows how talented he is. That he was fantastic as Robert.
Yep, absolutely. So he's very, they're all very talented. And like I said, it's funny how many of them you didn't know before this, but it is amazing to see what they all went on to do, so ragtag group of misfits here. So yeah.
And it's strange to think I was as I was watching this last night, I was just thinking this was all the way back in 2001. The movie is almost 20 years old now, and that blows my mind.
I know. It's crazy. Like, I'm not old, am I? Oh, wait, yes, I am. So, yeah. Oh.
I've been having that feeling with a lot of movies lately. It's like Gladiator, that turned 20 years old this year, and I'm like, no.
Return of the King did too, or is it? No, Return of the King was later, wasn't it? Was it Fellowship that came out in 2001?
Yeah, so yeah, we're just a little over a year away from that 20th, and I'm not ready for that because I have like actual really clear memories about sitting in the theater watching that, and down to like some people coming into the theater late and talking and everybody in the theater going shh. So like I have detailed memories like that of seeing it in the theater, so I'm not prepared for the 20th anniversary of that. No.
We'll just, that's fine, we'll just hold a Zoom and cry, John. It's fine. So yeah.
But yeah, it's just, this is one of my favorite movies, has been ever since ever since I saw it, and I've watched it so many times, and that's why we were able to, you know, I was like bring it on as far as a blow by blow, you know, discussion of this movie, because, and the reason why I was sort of embarrassingly able to recite, you know, lots of lines from the movie because I know it so well, and I've just watched it over and over. So yeah, it's always a joy to watch, and a real joy to talk about with you, Erin. I know we've been talking about this for a while, and I'm glad we were finally able to do it.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me on. I also love this movie. And I was telling Nessie yesterday, I was like, this is so awesome because this is a thing like the Lord of the Rings soundtrack. Like there are very few things that I can match your enthusiasm for. And I was like, this is a thing that I can absolutely match John's enthusiasm for. So I think this was perfect for the two of us to do together. So yeah.
And see, I've actually often been thinking about, could I pull off like a film score stream, and I keep thinking no, because I can't play music, you know, because of copyright issues. So it would just be me just talking about, you know, just talking about the music the whole time. And the only way I can think that I'd be able to pull something like that off is having you on a stream with me talking about the Lord of the Rings scores. The problem is we'd be really interested. Everybody else would just be bored out of their mind.
Like, oh my God, and then everyone else is like, oh my God, this is the whole thing? No, I'm out. So yeah, the stream with 0 viewers, just me and you talking. So yeah, pretty much.
Which maybe we'll still do it. You know, I'll just say like, you know what, this one's getting thrown out the window. So be it.
We'll both just learn to hum. You know, it's fine. So yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I guess that wraps up. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and we went for a nice long while. I think we lost Steven to the bathroom.
We did. We still have 9 people watching though. We love you all. So
yeah, we really do.
But yeah.
And this is great. I couldn't be happier that this one went on for so long. Because it was great just getting to go into all the little details. Okay, so I guess we'll wrap up. And again, I'm sorry, the next stream will be 3 weeks from today. If it wasn't for my work schedule, I'd be able to put something together a bit sooner, but it is what it is. So, and I'll let you guys know soon what the film under discussion will be. I have an idea, but it's not nailed down yet. So, so I guess a lot of people will be going over to watch Robert's stream on In Deep Deep. So have a good time. have a good time, guys, and have a wonderful evening. See you guys later. Bye.